The April 3rd, wrong date. June 5th, Des Moines City Council Committee of the Whole is now called to order. The Committee of the Whole is the council's opportunity to hear briefings from staff on a variety of items and emerging issues. This is a time for council education and an opportunity to offer input and direction to staff. Though the public is invited to attend, it's not a time for public interaction. No formal council action will be expected during this time. Please note that all council members are in attendance. Councilmember Nutting will be attending remotely. So the first item up on the agenda is the Madera Woodmont development, and I believe Rebecca. Oh, there you are.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the council. Tim George, I'm the city attorney. The council has a public hearing scheduled for next week regarding a development agreement. And we're going to provide tonight just kind of a very high-level summary of that and an introduction. We will have time for public comment next week. It's been advertised, and there will also obviously be time for council discussion and comments. So a development agreement is a voluntary contract between a city and a property owner. Development agreement contains obligations of both parties, and it lays out various standards and conditions that will control the development of a subject property. So it is a contract, so it's binding on both parties, and general laws of contracting apply. Typically, development agreements are used for large projects. I was looking back at some of the history in Des Moines, and we used a development agreement for Sound Transit. We also used one for the CMAR medical facility on Pacific Highway. So it's for larger projects. You wouldn't use it on a small project. They're discretionary, and they really help when there's multiple stages of a project or a proposal doesn't exactly conform to some aspects of a zoning code. Then the development agreement process can be used. So that's just some background on what a development agreement is. I'm going to hand it over to Rebecca to talk about the project's specifics and some of the terms.
Great, thank you. The project site is at 26915 Pacific Pac Highway South. It is a 7.89 acre site, and the proposal includes 290 market rate residential apartments and approximately 7,500 square feet of commercial space. The development agreement has a discussion regarding dimensional standards, including minimum height of the building. Where they're looking at a minimum height of 45 feet for the main buildings. Rear and side setbacks, including minimum setbacks of 10 feet. However, no setbacks will be less than at least 30 feet from the property line. The recreational area includes 63,000 square feet of common recreation space for all the tenants, or for all the residents, with at least 4,000 square feet of children play equipment area. It will have between 400 and 500 parking spaces, subject to a traffic impact analysis for the exact number. And the future approvals includes a plan unit development and design review going to the hearing examiner. So within the development agreement, this would be directed to the hearing examiner for a public hearing for the project approval. And the last thing in there is it has a fee notice that they've got a set fee for their plan unit development, design review, and SEPA in the amount of $80,000. And as was mentioned, the public hearing is scheduled for July 12th, the next council meeting. That's all I have.
All right, any questions? Councilmember Grace Matsui.
Yeah, I'm wondering if you can tell me more about what does market rate mean for the units, and can you give us a greater explanation of that? Thank you.
It means it's not tagged as affordable housing. There's no deed restriction. There's no programs that they're bringing to make it affordable, so it'll just follow the market for rentals.
Great, thank you.
Councilmember Mahoney.
This is the site of the old proposed Woodmont rehab site, is that correct?
Yeah, we had a couple different names, I think, depending on how long you've been here.
Yeah.
Rosie's Diner, I think, was one, and then for me, it was the Woodmont Recovery Center site. Yeah, so it's a kind of it goes deep. It's kind of a unique piece of property.
With the entrances off Peck Highway, based on what I could see, 2 entrances on Peck Highway and 1 off of 16.
That's
Right
correct.
now, it's just showing one on Pack Highway.
Oh, it's just showing 1? Is
Yes.
that the intent?
I believe so.
Okay,
All right.
thank you.
The full design, it is just a concept because it still has to go through the planned unit development and design review. So the DA is just for the terms that are in there, the number of units and those dimensional standards that were discussed.
Okay, and the last question, would we be changing the zoning for this structure?
The zoning does not need to change. It
Okay,
meets,
that's what I thought, I just want to be sure. Thank you.
So the height, the 45 feet is inside that's in the zone that's already there.
so the DA alters it. There is a higher minimum height. So within this zone, I believe it's 55 minimum height. They're just saying with these buildings, it'll be a 45-foot minimum height.
Okay.
So it's lower than the minimum height that you're supposed to have in that zone.
I can't see Councilmember Nutting. Go ahead. I'll call on Councilmember Harris and then Councilmember Oxiger.
No, actually, that was really excellent. I mean, I hope that the city basically highlights, because you've essentially answered the concerns that I've heard from people at every point. And so just somehow just getting that narrative. When would the traffic impact study be expected? Or is that premature to talk about?
It would be all part of the planned unit development going to the public hearing to the hearing examiner. So that would be when that was scheduled. We haven't started our full review on the planned unit development design review, so I don't have a date for that.
And I may be beating a dead horse here, but are there any expected variances or things like that, or is it premature for me to even ask about?
We're not expecting any, because any that they would expect would probably be put in this development agreement if they were asking for any.
Thank you very much.
Councilmember Oxiger.
Yes, thank you. So I take it that the 7,500 square feet of commercial will be on the bottom floor of Building 1?
That's correct.
And there will be, what, is it then 2 floors above it for residential?
I believe so.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Nutting, do you have any questions? No? All right. If there are no further questions, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
So next up, we're switching up the items here. So next up, we're going to have an update on the Sound Transit Federal Way Link Extension. And we have a team of 1 here.
Hello, Mayor and Council. Mike Seven, Public Works Director. A couple months back, we were asked to try to coordinate and see if we could get an update on Sound Transit's construction. We're almost complete in Des Moines. We're closing up our very last, crossing our T's and dotting our I's on our development agreements with them. Lynette Riley Hall is here today, the head of the Federal Way Link Extension Project, to give us an update about what's going on with the project.
Thank you. So, good evening, Mayor, council members, and community members. Thank you for the opportunity to be here today. Really appreciate this. And I'm here to provide an update on the Federal Way Link Extension Project. My name's Lynette Riley Hall, and I serve as the Executive Project Director for Federal Way Link Extension. With me is Cameron from Government Relations. So we're actually a team of 2 representing a $3.1 billion project and team. I was here last fall to share a project update, and I'm glad to be back with an update as we move closer to the start of revenue service. I'll walk you through where we are today, what's ahead, and happy to answer any questions at the end. Okay. So, okay, just a second. Let's see. Sorry about that. I imagine that many of you, if not all of you, are aware or already familiar with the Federal Way Link extension and have seen some of the construction progress over the years. I'll start with a quick project overview. The extension adds almost 8 miles of light rail continuing south from the current terminus at Angle Lake Station and SeaTac to the Federal Way Transit Center. It includes 3 new stations at Kent Des Moines, Star Lake, and Federal Way Downtown. The Kent Des Moines and Star Lake stations include new parking structures, and additionally, we're expanding the existing garage at the Federal Way Downtown station. Looking ahead, we're planning for transit-oriented development, or TOD, near the Kent Des Moines and Federal Way downtown stations, and I'll share a little bit more about that in a few moments. And now to the headline. While we don't have a specific opening date just yet, we're confident that Federal Way Link Extension will open for revenue service in the spring of 2026, in time for the World Cup. The project is currently 96.5% complete, and we're deep into systems testing along the full alignment. We're really excited. Now I'm going to share some images of each of the stations and the surrounding areas. Each is a testament, I think, to the tremendous progress we've continued to make in South King County. We'll start at the southern end of the light rail extension and then work our way back north. This image shows Federal Way Downtown Station, taken just last month, facing northeast. In the foreground, you'll see our newly completed bus loop, which includes a pickup, which is a drop-off zone, paratransit accommodations, and an improved network of connecting roads. The new bus loop officially opened to service on Sunday, March 30th. In this photo, you can even see one of the Sound Transit Express buses exiting the loop. The previous bus loop, visible just off to the upper left in this image, has been demolished, and that area is being rebuilt with a new roadway. One major improvement here is connectivity. The new bus loop sits right next to the Future Link station, just off to the right in this image, allowing for seamless transfers between bus and rail. And just to the left of the bus, you'll notice a construction staging area. That site will become one of 4 future TODs, or transit-oriented development projects, at the station. We're planning to issue the request for proposals for 2 of those sites as early as this month. Here's a picture of the ribbon-cutting ceremony we held for the new bus loop, which I mentioned opened for service in March. We were honored to be joined by the Federal Way Mayor, Jim Farrell, along with several Sound Transit board members to mark this milestone. Opening the bus loop ahead of the Link station was an important step. It gives our contractor the space and flexibility needed to complete construction of the new roadway network in the area. And I'd be remiss if I didn't take a moment to thank our operating partners at King County and Pierce Transit. Their coordination was absolutely vital to opening the bus loop successfully and keeping service running smoothly for riders along this transition. Next, here's a view of Star Lake Station, which is the middle of the 3 new stations along the extension. It's located on South 272nd Street in Kent. In this image, the new 1,100 stall parking garage is front and center. It will provide major park and ride capacity for commuters in this part of South King County. Just to the left of the garage, you can see the station platform itself taking shape. This area will soon be a key transfer point for local and regional travelers alike. Before we move on to the final station, I want to share a quick update on Structure C. This is the long span bridge segment of the extension that took some serious engineering to complete. When I last spoke to you in October, we just reached a milestone. By August 24, we'd achieved substantial completion of all of the civil work along the bridge. In January of this year, we hit another milestone. We successfully pulled a light rail vehicle across the bridge. You can see that moment captured here in the photo, a visual representation of how far we've come on one of the most technically challenging elements of the entire project. And here we are at the last station along the alignment, and for many of us, a favorite, the Kent Des Moines Station. On the left side of the image is the new parking garage, which will provide approximately 500 stalls for park and ride access. Just to the right of the garage, you can see the station platform, which sits adjacent to the tracks and will serve as an important hub for nearby neighborhoods, Highline College, and surrounding communities. Finally, just beyond the station and tracks, on the right side of the image, you'll notice a construction staging area. This site is planned for future TOD, helping bring more housing services and activity around the station in the years to come. This diagram provides a bird's eye view of the planned TOD sites surrounding Kent Des Moines Station and the light rail tracks. At our last briefing in October, we shared details about the north site. Since then, following a competitive selection process, Sound Transit awarded the site to Mercy Housing Northwest. Mercy is partnering with Open Doors for Multicultural Families, a Kent-based nonprofit that serves individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities and their families. Together, they'll deliver over 230 units of affordable housing, community services, and neighborhood-focused retail. Mercy Housing is on track to close on the project by the end of this year, with groundbreaking to follow up soon after. For the south site, Sound Transit and City of Kent have agreed to reserve it for future market rate development. In the interim, Mercy Housing will use the site for construction staging while the north site is under development. And finally, we want to provide an update on the west site, a potential transit-oriented development opportunity located directly adjacent to Highline College and College Way. We've started early conversations with Highline College to explore a partnership that could support both the college's campus master plan and Sound Transit TOD goals. It's still very early in the process, but we're excited about the possibilities, and we'll be sure to keep you updated on our partnership and planning progress. I'd like to close by offering a heartfelt thank you to the many, many partners who've made the Federal Way Link extension possible. To our colleagues here at the City of Des Moines and in Kent and Federal Way, your continued support and collaboration have been essential. The City of Des Moines has been an exceptional partner. To our transit partners at King County Metro and Pierce Transit, to WashDOT, Highline College, and to the affordable housing and social service organizations we mentioned earlier, thank you for your commitment to delivering benefits to the communities we serve. We're proud of the progress we've made together, and we're excited about what lies ahead as we move toward opening day of spring of 2026. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Councilmember Mahoney and then Councilmember Oxiger.
Thank you for the presentation. Right before, obviously, you just heard that the city's entertaining a 90 unit development. Getting to Star Lake, bus service off Pack Highway down, or is there something in the works? You talked about the bus service on Federal Way, and obviously we've been lobbying for the Kent Des Moines one, but was there any discussion on that?
I don't have an answer for that in terms of what the bus service would look like, but we can come back with an answer on that for you.
Would you please, because one of our biggest concerns is the south side of our town isn't adequately supported by bus service to get there. You got great parking, but if we could keep them out of their cars and to the site, it'd be fabulous. Anyway, so that, and then can you go back to, I think it's slide 9? Maybe not 9, it's where the transit-oriented development is. Yeah, it was 9. So one of our biggest concerns is Pack Highway, extremely busy, and we would be having a lot of students cross over Pack Highway. And I know they're doing sidewalks and all these kind of things. But it kind of dawned on me, because I've asked, maybe possibly that the south side and the west side could partner in some kind of sky bridge, which might make, because from what I understand, there's some preliminary talks where that might be a safer alternative. My concern is it might take the loss of a life before we'll entertain that, because that road is very problematic and extremely busy. So if you could take that back as a possibility, I'd appreciate it. I think I speak on behalf of everybody here. But the student safety, and obviously if we're gonna have housing there, particularly sounds like some disabled people and so forth like that, be nice to be able to do a dry, safe crossing rather than the big sidewalks. Yes, it'll work, but in this day and age, we've had a lot of problems with drivers ignoring the rules of the road, and I'm very concerned about that.
Right. I will take that back as a question. As you know, it was not part of the Federal Way Link Extension project, but I will definitely be taking that back.
Yeah, and I knew that. We asked a few times, and obviously money and so forth. But when I saw this, because of the development there might be some kind of partnership that could achieve that, and Sound Transit doesn't have to pay for it all. That's all.
Thank you.
Councilmember Oxiger and then Councilmember Harris.
Yes, thank you for the presentation. Just for the public's understanding, on the west site, given that we have the infamous sawtooth, that one property will be in the city of Kent, the other's in the city of Des Moines. The west site is in Des Moines, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And then also, I'd just like to echo Councilmember Mahoney's concern about crossing Pack Highway. I believe we just recently had somebody hit on the road and killed in that area. So I think it's, you know, it's happening already. So there's a lot of people that are running across the road and not going down to the intersection. So that is important. Thank you for taking that back to the powers that be. The other question I have is on the 272nd slide on 6. Okay, as I understand it, there is transit-oriented development going on the lower right-hand side where the road goes through there, that there's a project that's going in right there at the intersection, an apartment complex. Is that correct?
On our property, the TOD,
It'd be just across the street.
that I can't answer.
Okay.
So I am not the TOD expert, but I can certainly make sure that we take back any questions related to transit-oriented development.
And then the other thing is what will happen in the foreground here with the circle there and stuff, what's going in that area? It's staging right now.
Okay,
Lower left
yes.
there.
But, sorry, Michael is prompting me here. Michael is a construction manager, and he's prompting me to say ADA. And now he's shaking his head yes. But Michael, if you want to speak more, yeah.
Hello. Sorry for my tardiness. The internal circle that you see is laydown. That's currently going to be paratransit and ADA parking. We have a bus loop, which will have 3 different shelters for buses. And then the area about what you're referring to as that's not Sound Transit, but I believe there is a development there, but it's not associated with Sound Transit.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You might want to wait and see if there's other questions. Go ahead.
Councilmember Harris.
Thank you. And first of all, I always appreciate it when my colleagues do the nagging and ask for these sort of things that you're not prepared for, because it makes me feel better about myself. What I'd like to know, are all 3 stations going to be deployed synchronously at the same time?
Yes. So at Revenue Service, all 3 stations, it would be the full alignment that would open up at Revenue Service.
3 ribbon cuttings, same day, right? Yeah, no, I mean, that's just, because,
Well-
no, I've heard from several people in Federal Way that they were told that is not the case, and I just like any opportunity to just
Yeah.
get that out there.
Revenue Service will be one revenue service
Yeah.
for the entire alignment.
Cool, okay, so as a practical matter, and maybe this is my nag, but at the earliest convenience, I think it would be swell if your fine group of people could put together some kind of renderings of like the crossing at the Kent Des Moines station and just what the flows are going to be, because we've seen flyovers and we get the aerial stuff, but giving the people like the sense of what the on-the-ground experience is going to be as early as possible would be pretty good. Yeah, does it make sense what I'm asking?
No, I need a little bit more clarification.
I'm always talking about like real estate walkthrough renderings, just showing people at street level. How are they going to, assuming there isn't a sky bridge immediately, what would it look like for people at the ground level to be getting from the bus stop to the, and then crossing over Pack Highway, and just what that experience is going to be, going back and forth.
Okay,
Is that, because
Yeah,
like
so-
everything I've seen has been from
yeah,
a bird's eye view.
right.
And it's just always better when you have some kind of imagery that says, I'm a pedestrian,
Yeah.
and I get off the bus, and then I walk across the street, and here's what it's
Crosswalk.
going to look like. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah. And I would say the same thing for Star Lake, because I'm fascinated by essentially the transition that people are going to make from 272nd, getting over to the parking lot, and and the bus service and so on, there needs to be some kind of
Yeah.
ground level view.
Yeah, so I appreciate that, and when we did the bus loop, opening of the bus loop, we had arrows as well as a pathway in terms of the walkway that people would be using in order to get to where the buses are right now, from the parking garage, for example.
Yeah, I can visualize
you-
that. It's
yeah. Yeah,
The Kent Des Moines thing, to me, I'm really trying to wrap my head around just
yeah,
what it's going to be like, because it is a lot of traffic, and there are going to be, hundreds of people getting off at each, and so on. And, yeah,
Right.
thank you.
Councilmember Nutting, I'm not sure, I can't see your, do you have any questions?
I'm good, Mayor, thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other questions? Deputy Mayor Steinmetz.
Yeah, kind of to follow up on the questions you may not know the answer to, so it's okay. There's a little wooded area just on the outside of the concrete loop in this, down on the lower left. That's the area. Is that Sound Transit property, and are you aware of any plans for that area?
That is not Sound Transit property, that is a wetland if you're referring to this wooded area.
Okay,
And that wetland is owned by the property just north of us, the green, I forget the name, but they're the property north of us.
thank you. And then at the Kent Des Moines property, if we could just go to the number 9, I think it is, slide 9. How are people going to access the parking structure that seems to be on the other, you have the station in between Pack Highway and the parking structure. How do you get to the parking structure to park?
you want to take?
Is that clear? Or?
There's another photo before this that.
The other
is,
photo might show it,
it's,
yeah.
There we go. Oop,
Yep.
you missed
Well-
it. Right there.
So,
Yeah.
the parking structure is off to the east.
Mm-hmm.
So as part of the project, which you guys may have seen in the flyover, we did create 3 different street avenues, 234th to the north, 236th, which crosses over into College Way.
Okay.
And then 238th to the south. You can come into the garage through 236, and that'll come down through the south side of the garage. And then along 30th Avenue, there's also an entrance that you can enter onto the north side. So there's 2 entrances. You can't really see it now because it's being blocked by the guideway.
Mm-hmm.
There's an entrance on the north and there's an entrance on the south.
Great. Thank you.
I do want to respond to one comment that was related to the ribbon cutting, right? So the ribbon, we haven't yet determined where the ribbon cutting will be, but typically it's one ribbon cutting, not one at each station.
First in line is Des Moines. I just thought I'd point that out.
Councilmember Harris.
And I don't want to blindside you, but just do you have an overview of, you mentioned for the future potential partnership with Highline College, but also that it would meet with TOD goals? Do you have just sort of like a 25-word or less summary of what those goals are?
Cameron does.
You just thought they were gonna sit there.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Cameron from the Government Relations team. So it boils down to what's called the 80-80-80 rule. So 80% of our surplus property has to go to housing. 80% of that property that goes to housing has to be for affordable housing for people making up to 80% AMI. So in so many words, the TOD goals are affordable housing first and foremost. But yeah.
Okay. I don't want to get into the weeds. That was excellent. Thank you.
Okay. There are no further questions? Are you okay? Councilmember Oxiger.
Yes, sorry, I didn't ask this before. and this may be out of your knowledge area. If we go back to slide 6 on the 272nd station. Okay, in the upper right-hand corner, but coming down into where the line comes through, you can see that red roof there. Right, yes, that area right there. That is Mark Twain Elementary. And there was some controversy at one point as to whether the light rail being too close to the school, and they were talking about swapping that site for where the park and ride is on Pack Highway, and that the school district would build a new school there. That will have a direct effect on our school kids here in Des Moines. So do you have any idea what the status is of that property, if there was going to be they were going to have to move the school?
Yeah, we can't speak for the school. We can speak about a lot of the improvements that we've done at the school, reorienting the playfield, for example. We've worked on their roadway path for their buses and parking in that area. We've done quite a bit of collaboration, coordination with them to make sure that our impact was minimized as much as possible. And from what I understand right now, there's a couple things that we're still finalizing with the school as it relates to the playfield, but other than that, they've been pleased.
Sounds like they've abandoned the idea of moving the school, so that's good to know. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good
Thank you
job.
for having
Appreciate
us.
it. Absolutely. All right, next up, we have our draft 2026 to 2045 Transportation Improvement Plan, and City Engineer Tommy Owen is going to be speaking with us here for a moment.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. Tommy Owen, City Engineer. This evening, I'll be presenting this year's update to the Transportation Improvement Plan, better known as the TIP. And I'll try and make this quick here. Most everyone has seen this presentation. This is the same presentation that we go through kind of on a yearly basis, so I'll run through it pretty quick. What is the TIP? It is a prioritized list of 91 transportation projects that is not financially constrained. So in essence, it's kind of the city's wish list for transportation projects. It is derived from the Comprehensive Transportation Plan, which is a long-range 20-year plan that sets the policies, goals, and strategies to help guide decisions for future transportation systems. It defines the manageable network of arterial roadways, pedestrian networks, bicycle networks, and transit service priorities for the city. So how do projects get into the TIP? They mainly come from, like I said, the Comprehensive Transportation Plan. It also comes from analysis of the city's transportation system, whether that's traffic engineering studies, or as we get citizen input with concerns, we go out there and we take a look at the site. That could end up as a project within this. It's also from interagency and utility coordination. We work with CTAC, Sound Transit, WashDOT to make sure that the projects that they are constructing, which impact the city, also end up in the TIP. So the TIP is used to provide direction to staff for the development of the CIP. It also for planning and coordination, especially with the utilities and neighboring cities. That way that there's potential partnerships with those utilities and cities. It is required by state law that we submit annually by the end of July. We report it to WashDOT and Puget Sound Regional Council. And it also positions projects for future grants and loans. Basically, if we submit for a grant, typically it's required that the project is on the city's TIP. So the process, we have the discussion tonight with committee, And then we'll have a public hearing on June 26th. We will notice in the Seattle Times, and at the public hearing, there will be the opportunity for public comment. So a few of the accomplishments with some of the projects within the TIP. Priority 1, the pavement preservation program. Last year, we did complete an overlay on 16th Avenue, 272nd, 281st, down into Redondo, and on Redondo Beach Drive, as well as 4th Place. And then this year, we are working on a potential partnership with Midway Sewer District. They're doing a project on 16th Avenue from about 240th to 250th. And so we're looking to potentially partner with them for some asphalt restoration. So that will come back as a potential ILA in the future. Priority 4, we are continuing to work on the 24th Avenue South project. If you notice, in the last week or so, the contractor installed curb gutter and sidewalk on the east side of the road. So we are making progress on that and hope to have that completed this fall. Priority 5, this is great after that last presentation, Sound Transit Link Light Rail. The construction within the city is complete. We're just working on some closeout items. And then priority 6, the WashDOT Gateway project, the 216th Bridge construction is complete. Some more accomplishments. The priority 9, which is proposed in this, the neighborhood traffic calming program, we did implement a formal program. Alyssa presented that to the committee a couple months ago now, and we are working through the plans to put in some speed humps throughout the city. Priority 14, College Way, that construction is complete. And then a few projects under current design. We've got the Barnes Creek Trail South segment, which is also included within the 240th Street improvements. So that is the project on 240th from 16th to Highline College. And then priority 11, 200th Street and 199th. That project is also under design up in North Hill. So some of the proposed revisions from the previous years. So every year, staff comes and gives proposals for changes to the TIP. And so this year, we've proposed that priority 7, it's really just to remove a portion of the trail that's already been completed on 16th Avenue and redefine the project limits. Priority 9, neighborhood traffic calming program. With the adoption of the new formal program, we've moved that up from priority 32 to priority 9. Then priority 11, this is the North Hill Elementary Walkway Improvement Project. And it's really just to add that to the description of the project to make that more clear. And then a few other ones. These projects are complete. They're all associated with Sound Transit. So you have College Way, the 220th Street cul-de-sac improvements, and the South 221st Street cul-de-sac improvements. And then I just have one more that I'd like to add as well. Let me get to it. So number 16, the 223rd Street and Cliff Avenue improvements. I would propose that we expand the project limits on that project from the entrance at the beach park to Marine View Drive. And that's really just to look for potential grant opportunities for that corridor. And with that, I will open up to any discussion.
Any questions? Councilmember Mahoney.
I think that's an excellent suggestion on the 223rd Cliff Ave. It does open up the possibility of getting more funding. I don't know why we wouldn't want to approve it. The other thing is that it's not necessarily questions, but because I've just got to compliment you, I've seen this over the last 7.5 years, and we've got some stuff done when it used to be just move it to the right. So I want to compliment you and your staff. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Nutting.
Thank you, Mayor. I just have to echo Councilmember Mahoney's comments. I don't know why we wouldn't expand the Cliff Avenue, and you guys have gotten some stuff done. So thank you.
All right, any other questions or comments? I agree. Ditto, good job. I also agree, great recommendation. And then I did have a question on number 20, the Redondo Area Parking Management Project. So installation of parking management system on 282nd Street. Is that, is that complete with the, is that the parking or this is something else?
No, this is something else. So back in 2014 and 2015, there was the Redondo Parking Management Plan, and that went through a few iterations through council. There was some community outreach on that, and that's one of the projects that was identified as part of that. And specifically, so I believe, and I wasn't a part of this one, so I'm trying to catch up a little bit. But it looked at, the installation of signs, and designated, basically, it looked at designating locations within Redondo as residential parking only.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah, I was just curious. I wasn't exactly sure what that was talking about, so that was my only question. Anything else? Well, looks like we're good. Thanks, Tommy. Great
Thank you.
work. Appreciate it. All right, so it looks like that's a conclusion of our committee of the whole, and I don't think we need a motion since we're on time, so take a break before the study session starts. The June 5th, 2025 Des Moines City Council study session is now called to order. Councilmember Harris will now lead us in the pledge. Please stand if you're able.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let the record show that all council members are present and that Councilmember Nutting is participating remotely. To all the public joining us tonight, thank you so much. Appreciate you attending, and to the public that are actually here for attending so often. Thank you for being so interested, ladies. I appreciate you. If you're watching online or on Channel 21, please know that we cannot attend to our phones from the dais. But if you experience any difficulties, any technical difficulties, please email cityclerk@desmoineswa.gov. Do we have any correspondence not previously received by the council?
No, Mayor.
All right, thank you. So it's now time for comments from the public. Because this is a study session, we'll be hearing comments that address only the items on the agenda. Other subjects may be heard at a future business meeting. We ask that you keep your comments respectful and recognize that any person speaking or acting in a way that's disruptive to the meeting will be removed. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. Please state your name and your city of residence. And I don't have anybody who's signed in. Is there anybody out in the audience who wishes to speak tonight? No. All right, thank you. So moving on quickly to the next item, our discussion items for tonight. We're going to begin with Resolution 1118. And I think the Assistant City Attorney, Matt Hutchins, will be presenting tonight. The purpose of this item is to consider an update to the process of public contracting.
Thank you, Mayor, and good evening, Council. Matthew Hutchins, Assistant City Attorney, with the staff presentation, yes, again, for proposed updates to our Public Works contracting policies. I'm sure after looking at the packet and the PowerPoint, it all looks very dense and very daunting, but I promise you this is actually very simple. The state has changed a couple of the policies of how we are allowed to do public works contracting, and we're going to have to update our policies to match it. All right, so I'm going to first give a little background on our public works contracting policies, explain what the changes are that legislature has given us, how we propose to implement these changes, and seek a little bit of input from the council on fine points of this implementation. So what is public works contracting? As simple a way as I can put it is hiring contractors to build or repair improvements on city land. It is a highly regulated body of law by the state, mostly due to a history of corruption, self-dealing with these sort of contracts. And also they want to ensure that taxpayers get a good product for the taxes they're paying, or at least that is the intent. So there are 3 different processes that the state allows us to do that we have previously adopted through Resolution 1118. There's the competitive bidding process, which is the one most people are probably familiar with. But there's 2 alternative processes, formerly known as the small public works process and the limited public works process. And these are for smaller public works projects under about $300,000. These are the ones that the legislature has changed. So with competitive bidding, how it works is the city has to prepare a very large packet that includes specifications and plans of exactly what, where, and how the work gets done. And then an engineer studies it and prepares an estimate of what the work and the materials should cost. The city then publishes notice at our cost letting contractors know that we are inviting bids. Contractors take a look at the large packet we've prepared, and interested contractors submit sealed bids. And then at the date and time specified in the proposal, bids are opened, and the lowest responsive bidder can win the contract, or if bids come in too high, the city can reject all the contracts and start again. Now, this is a very expensive, regimented, and time-consuming process, so it's not great for smaller jobs, ones less than $300,000. The process also makes it difficult for small contracting firms to compete for jobs, so the legislature created the two alternative processes that let us use the MRSC Small Works roster, which is essentially a list of smaller contractors who show a willingness to do these kind of smaller jobs. So this is a comparison of the larger of the two processes, what was called the Small Public Works process. On the left, we have under the old law. Under the right is the new law. Functionally, it's pretty much the same process. The maximum amount of the contract that can be let using this process has gone up a little bit. But the main issue for us is that the RCW has changed, which means our references in the old resolution are no longer good. And on the left, in the highlight, there's an alternative to the alternative that let us, instead of reaching out to all the people on the list, we could just reach out to 5, as long as we use processes to make sure we were not using the same firms all the time. That it has been eliminated by the state, so we cannot use that anymore. But bottom line is what we're proposing to do is essentially just re-adopt this policy. Now, in contrast, the legislature has completely eliminated the smaller of the processes, the limited public works process. And what this was for was projects of less than $50,000. We could go to the MRSC roster of contractors that were doing the particular kind of job we were looking for, reach out to 3 of them, solicit bids, and go with the lowest bid. This was a much less formal process, but again, we had to do our best to make sure things were equitably spread around and we were not favoring one contractor all the time. But the bottom line here is this one, again, no longer exists. We can't use it. So it's a moot point. So what the legislature has replaced it with is we are now allowed to use the new process up to $150,000. And the way this works is we pull up the MRSC roster of the particular kind of work we want done. If we want sidewalks done, we go to that roster. And we just pick one on the list, and we contact that contractor, and we try to reach an agreement on a price. If they come up with a price less than we were hoping them to do, we can say, fine, we have a deal, we have a contractor. If they're too high, we can ask them to come down. If we can't agree on a price, then we can move to the next contractor on the list, try to negotiate with them, repeat the process until we find the contractor we want. But still, the legislature is concerned with making sure the same firms don't get jobs all the time, and that disadvantaged businesses, women-owned businesses, veteran-owned businesses aren't disadvantaged. So the legislation requires that we adopt formal processes to make sure we are rotating between contractors on the list, and we are utilizing disadvantaged contractors when possible. So in adopting, readopting the one process and adopting this new process, the city's not required to use either of them on any job. The big competitive bid process, we can still use that when that's appropriate for the job. But if we do adopt them, then they are available to us if it's the right process for the job. However, if we don't adopt either of these, then we have to do competitive bidding on everything. So what we are proposing is a new resolution to replace 1118 that for all the parts that don't have to do with Public Works stays the same. But the changes we would make to Public Works is for the small Public Works process, we would eliminate all the language that was taken from the old RCW, and we would just replace it with a reference to the current RCW, saying we will use this process according to the process set out by statute. We do the same thing for what used to be the limited public works process, and then referencing the direct contracting process. There are a couple sections on utilizing the MRSC roster both for public works and for professional services. They will be moved into their own section just for clarity. There's no good reason to have it in the small public works section anymore. We would have to adopt new policies to implement the direct contracting process. MRSC has produced model policies there in your packet. We are proposing to start with those and make changes as appropriate to fit Des Moines. And then we would make those attachments to the resolution, incorporate them by reference. And there is also in the new legislation a minor change to retainage for very small products, so we're just including that as well. And I will take this opportunity to clarify, I made reference to retainage in the packet. I should have said contingency. So where I said retainage, I meant contingency, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute. So we have three questions for the council. First, does the council approve of using the MRSC's model policies to build the policies we need to adopt for the direct contracting procedures? We could do that. We could start from scratch, make our own policies that are built from the ground up, specific to Des Moines. We could also just not adopt the policies at this time, but that would mean we are not allowed to use the direct contracting procedure. Question number two. So the previous procedure was to list the maximum dollar value of the contracts we could let for any of these procedures. Previously, up through 1118, we just set the actual dollar amount, $50,000 for the limited public works, $300,000 for the small public works. Problem is, the legislature from time to time would raise the numbers, and if we wanted to go with it, we would have to adopt a new resolution. So we could continue doing that, set the direct contracting at 150, the invitation to bid at 350 or lesser amounts if the council so desired, or we could just put a reference to the RCW in the resolution saying dollar amount as specified in the RCW. And that what that would mean is whenever the legislature decides to lift the caps, ours would automatically be lifted as well. And the final question, question number three, has to do with contingencies, which is the percentage that's tacked on to when the council approves public works contracts. Usually, the council approves the contract, approves spending that amount of money, plus 10% to cover unforeseen expenses that may come up. There has been mention from the dais recently, is 10% enough given what's happened with contracts lately? The language in Resolution 1118 says it should be 10%, so we don't necessarily have to make the change right now. That gives us wiggle room to, if the Public Works Director or the City Manager thinks the contingency should be higher, they could put that in the packet. And of course, the council could, at the time of adoption, say, we want to put 20% on. But since we are adopting a new resolution, that gives us the opportunity to make the change to the suggested contingency if the council wanted to. So the council could keep it at 10%. Council could set the suggested contingency at something higher, 15, 20%. Council could also say the city manager shall determine a correct amount of contingency based on a particular job, the risk to the job. So those are the three questions. And that completes my presentation. Are there any questions?
So right now, just questions for clarity on any of the options, and then we'll take each question one at a time. So if you've got a question about the options, Deputy Mayor Steinmetz.
Yeah, just want to say the comparison side by side was really well done. Thank you. That helps a lot. On the MSRC policies, why wouldn't you want to adopt the model policy? Is there any reason, and how much staff time would it take for the staff to try to build their own policy from the ground up?
It would probably be a fair amount of time. If I was making the decision, I would probably start with MRSC. They have done all the legwork, and I imagine a lot of jurisdictions are using them, so it'll be uniform. And if issues do come up, we'll know about them. So I don't see a real need for us to invent the wheel on our own.
And same seems to be applied to the dollar thresholds. Just a reference to the RCW provides some level of uniformity, and it's an easy way for us to at least keep that amount current as opposed to having to come back and change it. Is there any advantage to setting a dollar threshold at this point?
I mean, that would just be a matter of the council is keeping control of where they want the level to be, but that's if the council decided that was the wise course of action. If the council thought the legislature has said it here, we might as well take our authority up to the level the legislature has said. Then I would go with pegging it to the RCW.
Okay, and then for the 10% contingency, was there a rationale underlying that 10% when it was adopted, and is that rationale still current?
I can't answer that. My guess would be regular practice, but perhaps the Public Works Director would like to weigh in.
Yes, Councilmember. So or Deputy Mayor, the 10% is a pretty common number to use for contingency within our projects, generally speaking, because public works projects are usually well-defined, concretes and things like that are done over and over again throughout a city. So it's traditionally been a number. We'd like to reserve the right to bring higher for certain contracts because we might be doing environmental projects, for instance, we would normally start with a 15 or a 20 because environmental projects also have a lot of unknowns underground that you don't know about. So just depending upon what the project is, we can bring that as a change in the larger bidded project, but 10% is a pretty normal best practice type of contingency.
Okay, is there a way to frame it in our policies, though, as a best practice, unless otherwise
I think that that the way, and I spoke with the city attorney about this earlier also, is that if we kept it at 10% as the standard, and then anything that deviates, we could bring to you at the time we bring the contract and explain it at that time so that the council's aware we're requesting a higher than normal contingency.
Given the economic insecurities of the last few years, are you comfortable with the 10%? Or
Yeah, I'm comfortable with the 10%, and if 10% doesn't cut it, then we should come back here and explain to you why.
All right, thank you, appreciate it.
Councilmember Harris.
And I don't mean to blindside you, but I'm just, 150 to 300, you know how when they do legislation, they have a policy analysis and all that stuff? Just how often do we engage in contracts where that 150 to 300 spread might come into, in other words, how onerous has it been for us that, where it was like $162,000 in curses in it? Does that make sense what I'm asking?
It does, but I am not privy to that information.
That's okay.
You asked it. Go ahead and let him answer.
So there have been, since my time in Des Moines, there's been several under the new rules that we could have utilized like a direct contracting effort, right? One of those I could see right away would be HVAC installations, gate installations, things like that, that would, versus the old way where we had to go get 5 bids and work through the system. So I think that the direct contracting gives us some great opportunities for those lower numbers, the 150 and below. And so I think that there's some really good adds to this. But have we, is something going to be 162 and then we have to use the other one? Or once we're getting up above $250,000, we're already looking at bidding, to be honest with you. So as a best practice, you go out and you do plans and specs and bids. You're getting to the size of a project when you're going to want plans and specs, and then you might as well bid it.
Okay, okay, so back to the attorney, and I'm sorry I'm being lazy. My eyes are killing me. When was the last time this was updated? When was that, 100?
So
more than 10 years?
So the last time we updated the resolution, it's been over 10 years, and it's up until the recent change, it had probably been a similar amount of time since the state had done it.
Okay, so construction inflation has been huge, so yeah, I'm fine. Thank you.
All right. Councilmember Grace Matsui.
Thank you. I appreciate, absolutely, the side-by-side is very helpful. I'm wondering if the MRSC has, and I haven't been able to locate it, a rotation policy and business utilization plan. And I know that we had hoped, but we didn't have to have one perhaps written down that we used to spread around the contract dollars to different vendors or businesses. But do they also have a model, one of those that we can use, or is that something we'll need to develop?
Those are the plans that are in the packet. One is the rotation plan, one is a business utilization plan, and the other is essentially just the nuts and bolts of direct contracting.
Excellent, thank you.
Just a moment, Councilmember Harris. Councilmember Nunning, do you have a question? No,
I have no questions, thank you.
All right, thank you. Just wanted to give you an opportunity before we went around again. Councilmember Harris.
And I'm just looking at the draft. This, I'm just probably, yeah. This does not apply to like professional contracts and things, 50, none of that has changed.
Correct. Our policies for non-public works contracts are not being changed in the proposed plan.
There's just this huge copy-paste thing, and the other thing is that the port calls it WEMB, like they have, like, do we have any kind of internal language regarding like women and minorities and that kind of thing, contracting deal? I'm just asking if there's some kind of a.
Yeah, we don't have any city-specific stuff, but there are state. Go ahead.
If we're using state grants or federal grants, we would fall under having to use those requirements, but not within the city. The city does not, to my knowledge, have like a SBE or those types of programs.
Very good. Thank you, sir.
All right. So let's address these 3 questions that we were given. So the first question is, should MRSC's model policies be adopted as the city policies for implementing direct contracting procedures? I would say if anybody is opposed, raise your hand. Okay, looks like you got your answer there. Oh, go
With
ahead.
clarification, you're saying to adopt the model policy?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, okay. Number 2, should the threshold amounts for the use of small works procedures be set by resolution or pegged to the thresholds set by the legislature? The presentation seemed to lean toward preference for the legislature. So if you are opposed to the preference of staff, raise your hand. Okay, looks like you got direction on that one. And then number 3, should the retainage percentage for public works contracts be increased from the current level of 10%? If you think it should be increased, raise your hand. Okay, looks like you got direction on all 3 questions. Anything else that you need from us?
I don't think so. We anticipate bringing it back in 3 weeks at the
Okay.
end of June.
That gives us some time to mull over some of these if we are thinking again about it. Okay?
Thank you.
Good, thank you. All right, so the next item up is our comprehensive plan update. And I think we're going to be hearing from Community Planning Director Rebecca Deming and Development Services Manager Laura Chichico. The purpose of this item is for council to consider and discuss updates to the comprehensive plan.
Hello, how's everyone doing? Ready to get into the comp plan again? Mayor Council, as we discussed last month, the comp plan is required to have a periodic update every 10 years under the Growth Management Act, or GMA. The deadline was originally last December. We're getting close to the end though, so, light at the end of the tunnel here. The comp plan includes 11 elements or 12 chapters when you include the introduction. Last month, we went over the economic development element and the different neighborhood or district elements. We've also discussed all those that are italicized on the screen, and today we will go over land use and housing. Currently, the schedule proposes to bring the transportation element in August, and then we're looking to have the public hearing in September, and hopefully adoption. The comp plan is a 20-year high-level policy document intended to articulate the community's goals, objectives, and policies that can't be achieved without implementation measures like regulations, incentives, and programs. Council's role as the approving body of the comprehensive plan is to ensure that it meets the city's vision. Are there any additional goals or policies that should be added? Any existing policies that should be changed? And remember, this is just a high-level vision document. Any implementation requirements would be a municipal code update. Staff's role in the periodic update includes leading the public engagement, updating text, reviewing and making recommendations to council. And the 2 chapters we have tonight are the land use and housing element, including land use map updates. I'll give a brief overview about each chapter and the major changes that we had within each one. I'll pull up the red lines from each chapter to go over any sections you'd like to review. And then at the end of each chapter, I'm looking for a council consensus on proceeding with the chapter as presented for the public hearing, or if there's other changes you'd like to see. And then at the end, after the 2 chapters, we'll go over the land use map. The land use element establishes the general location and distribution of land uses within the city, the design and quality of the built environment, and provides the framework for the other plan elements. The goals, policies, and strategies listed in this element are meant to promote land use decisions, and zoning to create future development opportunities and suitable locations for the next 20 years. Most of the substantive changes to the goals, policies, and strategies relate to updated state, regional, and county requirements, and include updates to housing and job targets, updates regarding PSRC's 2050 data, and updated policies related to new laws and countywide planning policies. So I'm happy to go over any specific areas. Let me zoom this in.
Let me know when you're ready for.
I am ready.
Okay, Councilmember Mahoney.
So, section 2.1.4, encourage improvement of the Marina District and Pack Ridge neighborhoods by working with the business community and other representative organizations to achieve the goals of the City of Des Moines Comprehensive Plan. And it was the new project that kind of got me thinking. We have the ability, I'm wondering if the language for Upper Woodmont, South Des Moines, and even Redondo should be added, because there are business opportunities in all those neighborhoods as well, just to be inclusive, not specific to. Those would be, even North Hill for that matter, off First Avenue. And maybe the languages throughout our neighborhoods, various neighborhoods and the opportunities each provides, or something like that. It was just, when seeing a letter today and some of those things, it was like, this is what we're trying to do on Pack Highway. That's been a commercial piece of property that, God, could have been a dealership and brought us money or something like that. And I just think we need to look at those other opportunities as well and make sure that we acknowledge that their potential for business and revenue generating and also service to our community. So anyway, that was it on that one. The other one, 4.1.3 on the organic material. So maybe it's the Cedar River Compost Center. You know, I attended a lot of meetings, and boy, is there a stink about that, and pun intended. Yeah, and the concern there, I could see the language, I understand we need to, is, you know, there might be odor abatement or something along those lines, and I don't necessarily know the best verbiage for that, but I could see that being problematic. Those are the two I had.
Any other input or questions? Councilmember Nutting, how are you doing?
Thank you, Mayor. Sorry, having technical difficulties over here. My concerns are the Pack Highway and building heights, but other than that, I'm good with everything.
Okay. And this is just, right now, this is just land use, right? Or
That's
are you
correct.
doing, and the housing is next?
We'll do housing after, yes.
Okay. Looks like I see no other hands. So I sent questions in, and I appreciated your answers and that you sent them to everybody, so.
Okay, so do we have an official wording that we'd like changed on that 2.14?
I guess I gave it the best. I think whether you want to identify each of the neighborhoods I gave you or more, they all have, you know, commercial value and potential. Whether you want to name them all six or just do various neighborhoods within the community that avail the opportunity to pursue those things. I don't know. If somebody's got better language, I'm all for it.
What's the consensus?
Councilmember Grace Matsui.
Yeah, I think, building off of that, is it worth it to leave it wide open, or do you want to narrow it to 4 neighborhoods? Or is there value in just saying, consideration of additional commercial development or revitalization along traffic corridors? I mean, do you want to make it sort of more broad, or do you need to name the specific neighborhoods?
We don't need to name them. This is an existing policy that have had in there from the previous round. So any update you'd like is I'm open to.
Deputy Mayor Steinmetz.
given that this is sort of a high-level piece, it seems to me to be more advantageous to talk about either various neighborhoods or neighborhoods throughout the city as a reference, rather than to name specific corridors or specific neighborhoods.
Just you could say compatible neighborhoods throughout the city.
That's good. I like that.
Councilmember Harris.
Yeah, I would favor keeping everything as open-ended as possible. I do sort of have a high-level question, like, and because I'm just not feeling great right now. Seattle and other cities have set up these kind of like little village market kind of deals, and is that any kind of language that we need to, is there any formal language for, let's say, having a corner market within a particular neighborhood? They created they created policy, formal policy to enable that. And I didn't even realize it was necessary, because I think of these little neighborhood restaurants and markets in parts of Seattle, and I just thought that was a thing. Is that something that needs to be put into formalized in some way?
It would not need to be formalized in the comprehensive plan. That would be an allowable use, so that would be a change in the municipal code.
Okay. Yeah, because I'm just, I know somebody sent in some questions about like the Pack Ridge deal, and I mean, I just am familiar with how that was annexed into the city, and it's like, what functional thing that it just doesn't make any sense to me on a practical level, having it, because it's just literally.
So are you saying, so sorry to interrupt, Councilmember, so are you saying this discussion and recommendations for implementation will be later on after this document is done?
It could be a
Specific
proposed code
implementation.
change, yes. Likely, there was a legislative bill that came through that was gonna require cities to allow those kinds of uses. It didn't quite make it through this year. We are expecting to see it again next year. So it's likely something that even if we brought something to you, would probably have to update and change once the legislative session goes through next year. But it's definitely something we can talk about when we talk about all the docket we wanna have for next year. Something like that could be put on the list.
Keep it in his back pocket.
So
Okay.
it wasn't having a senior moment, that really was okay, good.
It was on the legislative agenda this year, but it didn't make it through by the end.
Very good, thank you.
Good. All right, it looks like with no further questions, we're ready to move on to housing.
Okay. I keep disconnecting. I might need the pointer. Okay. The housing element contains the goals and policies that identify steps the city can take in response to housing issues found within the community. These steps are intended to ensure the vitality of the existing residential stock, estimate current and future housing needs, and provide direction to implement programs that satisfy those needs consistent with the goals and requirements of the GMA. Our work includes the integration of numerous changes that have occurred across agencies and in the state law that had to be incorporated into this element. Most significant topics which drove the revisions include our housing action plan, equity considerations, expanded state requirements and new laws, GMA legislative changes, our growth target revisions, and the King County Affordable Housing Committee comments to make sure we align with the new countywide planning policies. And I'm ready to find out where you'd like to start.
All right, raise your hand if you have ideas. Councilmember Mahoney.
So I didn't have a lot of recommendations or changes on this. It was, and I know and understand that there's the red lining, but table 7.1 and 7.2, particularly 7.2, had the footnotes down below, and then they had the table on the next page. my recommendation is just for readability, that they, you know, that they make sure the table and the, information is on the same page. And then the only other one is, I was looking at the appendix, real quick, just because of something that was there. And I see that there's data from Washington State Department of Health Tracking Network. And it talks about the poverty level in our various cities, or various neighborhoods in our city. And I was shocked to see the lowest percentage of those in poverty is the Marina District. And you guys verify that, or just take them for granted on their data because they do all the verification?
We use their numbers and their verification. We did not do additional research on our own. A lot of this is taken in and what's being used across the cities for these equity considerations and what they point us to use as in the guidebooks.
Yeah, so it's consistent. And the only thing I saw on that sheet is it looked like Redondo looked like it excluded. There's looked like they're Woodmont, but there's not, or maybe they're together or something like that, Woodmont and Redondo. That's all.
All right. Councilmember Nutting, do you have anything in regard to housing?
Thank you, Mayor. No.
All right. I don't see any other hands. I had questions. You answered them and sent them to everybody. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. I did have one recommendation on housing 2.1.2 to end the sentence with such as skip. So the sentence reads, support the acquisition and preservation of income-restricted rental housing by housing partners such as skip. It's just an acknowledgement that we are already doing it. Okay,
Consensus? Yeah? Okay.
and that's all I had for this one. And I don't see any other hands, so wow. Looks like we're good with this one. Do you feel like you have everything that you needed from the
Yeah.
session?
Yeah.
All right.
Well, let's get to the map then. Okay. Staff reviewed the zoning map and land use map, the current ones, to identify any discrepancies we had. It is both a current policy within the comprehensive plan and a proposed policy that requires us to be in alignment. And so we reviewed and found these discrepancies, and so we're here to propose changes in the land use map to ensure that our land use map conforms with zoning. And so I provided you, we have the big map, and then in this presentation, we pulled them out individually, and we had the chart, and so I'll kind of go through each one. So the Marina District 1, or MD1, staff is recommending updating the land use map to MF multifamily and removing the overlapping land use designation to conform with zoning. Does anyone have any concerns? So you can see how there's this weird, unusual split zoning. So we're getting rid of that and just going to go to multifamily. And if you see on the chart that was provided, you'll see the existing zoning on there is multifamily, RM. Okay, I'll go on. MD 2 and 3 also has split zoning. Staff is recommending updating the comprehensive land use to commercial and removing the overlapping land use designation to conform with the zoning. I'm just gonna assume someone will speak up or when you have a concern.
So everything that is adjacent to 23rd on that corridor right there will turn into commercial.
Correct, which is what the zoning has now.
Yes, even, so, and,
So it's currently zoned D, you'll see here, this is the current zoning designation. And so it's already all basically commercial on our zoning map. So most people, what they look at is the zoning map. Now we're just gonna be in compliance with our zoning map.
yeah, yep, all right, thank you. Yeah,
So MD4, staff is recommending updating the land use map to commercial to conform with the zoning. So this one is not split zoning, but it isn't not a non-conformance, where the current one is multifamily, but the zoning is commercial. Okay. MD5, staff is recommending updating the land use map to commercial and removing the overlapping land use designation to conform with zoning. So again, a split zoning. Okay. NC1, staff is proposing updating the comprehensive plan to single family to conform with the zoning. We chose this one based on the ordinance 1771 that you guys passed in 2023, looking at the zones of this area. You know, this one was kind of economic development wise. Do you want to keep it industrial BP, but to conform with the zoning? And since you guys recently looked at it, we're just proposing to put it in compliance with what you guys, motions you guys recently did. Okay, R1, staff is, yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I did have a, you're saying you want to convert it from BP to RS 8400?
So the current zoning is RS 8400, but the land use map showed it still as BP. So we had an inconsistent, so one option would be to bring back in the future a zone change to make it BP, or change the land use map to match the RS and make it single family. I'm bringing you this recommendation to make it single family only because it was a recent ordinance you guys passed.
I think the confusion here is it seems like a no-brainer to go ahead and change the maps after the council makes these zoning decisions. But what you're saying is it needs to be a council decision to do both, not only to change the zoning, but also anytime you change the map, even if it conforms, you have to have a council decision.
Correct. When you change the land use map, you're updating your comprehensive plan.
Yes. So I think hopefully that makes it clear.
This is what confuses me, actually, is just, I thought we made the decision, and now it seems like.
Right, so that's why I'm recommending to bring it in compliance with the decision you made. If you don't have any issues with that, we just move forward and we'll update the comprehensive plan land use map and keep it as that residential use that matched the ordinance you approved.
Yeah, no, that's usual. That's useful to me because I'm just assuming that after I read something and make a decision, I don't have to look at it again.
Yeah.
And when I see it again, it makes me think that I'm having one of those senior moments.
Usually you can approve a zoning change with the expected comprehensive plan to come forward, but because you can only update your comprehensive plan once a year, it sometimes lags. So it could have been since it was so recent and the city had started the comprehensive plan update for the periodic update, that it was just assumed it would be incorporated. And so that might be why it didn't come back that same year. That could be one reason. But I wasn't here, so I can't answer.
No. I get a lot of people who are, I will get asked about that, so thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so staff is recommending updating the comprehensive plan to multifamily to conform with the zoning. So this one's an RA, residential attached, but it's zoned as land use as single family currently. R2, staff is recommending updating the land use map to PF, public facilities, to conform with the use of this parcel as the Redondo Waterfront Park with utility pump station adjacent to the park. South Des Moines SDM1, staff is recommending updating the comprehensive plan land use map to single family to conform with the zoning. Woodmont 1, staff is recommending updating the comprehensive land use map to commercial to conform with the zoning. This one's a little unique because it is owned by a public facility, which is why I think it was originally turned public facility, but there's no use on it. So it's usually unusual for it to change the land use map, especially when the zoning isn't changed, when there's no use on, it's currently a vacant lot. So we're proposing to match the zoning and bring it to commercial. And those are all the ones I have. I didn't hear any other changes, so it sounds like I have a consensus on these map changes.
Like you do. Good.
Okay. As I mentioned, we are hoping to bring the transportation element in August. And then, assuming everything goes similarly with no major changes, we will advertise for a public hearing in September.
Right,
So,
good work.
thank you.
Thank you. Okay, appreciate your work, thank you. So the next up, the next thing we have is the protocol manual discussion. The purpose of this item is for council to continue our discussion on the amendments to the protocol manual. Just for some background, in accordance with the City Council Protocol Manual, the council will consider amendments every 2 years. In March this year, the council was asked to submit their top 3 to 5 amendment requests for consideration. Now, that appeared in the city manager's weekly report to the council, but it really came from me. This document is not a staff recommended document, or it doesn't apply to staff, it doesn't apply to anything but the council. It's our protocol for the 7 of us. So even though that appeared in her report, that was just out of convenience for me. So those who submitted amendment requests, more than 3 to 5 were asked to prioritize their top 5 interests. So tonight we will revisit undecided items, as we have had plenty of time to review requests and form opinions. So our process will be as follows. Each council member who has put forward items will be allowed to make a case for up to 5 items and will be allowed 3 minutes each. 1 response will be allowed from each colleague. If anybody has a response, you'll have opportunity for 1. And the presenting council member will be allowed 1 defense, up to 3 minutes. Then after that, we'll take it to a vote, and if a request dies, keep it for the next update. So that's how we're going to handle this. This has been ongoing for since March, and we have a lot of decisions to make in the next handful of months, so want to expedite this process here. All right, so I think everybody received a list of the submitted amendment requests from council members. So we're going to go back to the beginning and start with Councilmember Grace Matsui. She's got 4 items here. So I will open the floor to her for item number 1, bring back 26A.
Right, thank you. I did get some advance warning that this was happening, so I don't have 3 minutes prepared, but I should have a couple of things to say. I believe that we should consider bringing back Rule 26A, the second reading of all ordinance changes, but I'm open to talking about maybe ordinance changes of a certain magnitude, perhaps. It doesn't have to be all, so I'm willing to talk about how that could be changed or made to be more manageable. There could be some ordinances that don't require a second reading that could easily be agreed upon to say, yeah, that's something that we can change, or we feel like it's been sufficiently noticed. This has been important to me because I think it's a value to our community to invite in their participation and to get folks activated and involved in participating in government. And one of the ways that we can do that, one mechanism to do that, is to make sure that they have adequate time to review proposed changes and get back to us in a time frame that is reasonable to working adults. I think it's been common since the elimination of Rule 26A to have a packet come out on a Friday with proposed ordinance, and for us to have some questions about it maybe by Monday and to vote on it on Thursday, which just does not seem reasonable for parents, working families, people with full-time jobs, or maybe more than one full-time job, to get involved and make sure that they have an opportunity to get their voice heard before we go ahead and make that ordinance change. So it's about that transparency, conducting business out in the open, and it's about engaging the public in the decisions that are being made on their behalf in government.
Right. Any response? Councilmember Harris.
Yeah, I would support that. I said last time that I would also support a modified, what Burien has done, where essentially there is a single vote, but then it comes back as a consent agenda item the next time. The Port of Seattle also does that. I would just add, in terms of community engagement, I'll note new city manager Caffrey has really done a solid for the council by delivering the presentations a day ahead of time. That never used to happen, and it would be the case that we would just be looking at things on the fly. Consider tonight's things, where just having those presentations in advance are marvelous. And if we only get one day, then the public only gets one day to have a digestible version of reality. So having a second whack at this, either with a formal second reading or bringing it back as consent, gives the public not just a second chance, but also they get more time to look at that presentation and just see it in that digestible format. So I'm good with either way.
Councilmember Oxiger.
Yes, I would have to agree, and we actually have something going on right now where if the public is notified of something, you start seeing on social media that there is confusion as to how things are going, and whereas right now we have the opportunity to question the city manager the following Monday, public doesn't have the opportunity to raise these issues. So I think that I do like the idea of bringing it back for initial reading and decision, but then putting it on the consent calendar. I think that would go a long ways to giving people the opportunity to make sure we've got it right. Thank you.
Councilmember Mahoney and the Deputy Mayor Steinmetz.
So we did this because the mundane was turned into a political fiasco for the most part. The majority of what we've done is just gone through anything that needed a second reading, we've moved to do that. This is, in my opinion, a waste of time because it's the average things, the ordinances that don't really move the needle or nobody's excited and they're not riveting. If there's issues that are riveting, then it can go to a second reading, and I'm inclined to support that if that's what I see. But I don't think it needs to change. I think it was broken before and we fixed it. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Steinmetz.
When I was first elected to the council, I was really kind of upset that we didn't bring back things for a second reading. And then started realizing how often it was waived and nobody seemed to notice. And I have never heard from anybody that, oh, I really wanted a chance and really missed out on that chance. But, I think the legislative process is a give and take process, and obviously there are at least 3 members up here that seem to want to bring it back in some way, and I would favor bringing it back on the consent calendar for a second reading, but to be revisited later if there isn't a big demand for it. I hope it doesn't take a lot of our time to do that, because the advantage that we gained is moving things to get done quicker that a lot of people I'm not sure found that important, and I think that when there was a need for a second reading, that had been granted, but I'm certainly open to give it a change. So, with the modification that's been suggested.
All right. Did you have anything to say, Councilmember Nutting?
No, nothing more than Councilmember Mahoney said. I'm not going to support this moving forward.
All right. Personally, I have a little bit of PTSD about how this was politically used. I felt, and so I'm operating in an opinion out of trauma, being accused of lack of transparency just because we wanted to move business forward, and the messaging that every time we wanted to council rule, suspend Rule 26A, we were accused of breaking a rule that was there for a reason. But the reason you could suspend, but suspending Rule 26A was also a rule. So we picked a rule to suspend a rule. So we were accused, though. And so it's frustrating to me. We did work hard to create a way to move forward. We have the option of a second reading anytime we think it's necessary. So we worked hard to do this, but I can see that what's going to happen here is that the consensus is going to be to bring it back. So so I would strongly recommend not 2 full readings, but bring it back on consent. And that would be my compromise, even though I'm just making it clear here, I'm compromising. It's not my favorite decision. So I think everybody, Councilmember Harris, one thing. So you have one more option to say anything else that you'd like to say, Councilmember Grace Matsui?
On that item?
Yes, on that item.
No, I think that, again, we have the opportunity to update these rules every 2 years. We can see how it goes. And I do like the idea of having it on the consent agenda because it can just quickly move through. If there's no additional comments, then it'll get voted on in that next meeting or on the next time it's on the consent agenda, and we'll meet some of the need that's been expressed to me by constituents that they do not have enough time to turn in comments on proposed legislation.
Okay, so just for clarity, you wanted to bring back 26A and as a clarification point, that it would come back on the consent. Okay, so for the staff, that amendment is clear. All right, next. Oh, number two, adjournment. Well, because these will all come back as amendments and then we will vote on them together as the updated protocol manual, so there'll be a vote then. Go ahead, number 2.
Great, thank you. So this is also something that I'm open to multiple solutions. I think having a set end time at 9 o'clock has had the opposite effect I think that we need it to. We instead have to stop business and manage extending the meeting sometimes 3 times in order to get through our agenda. And I come from more exposure to meetings where you end the meeting when your agenda is complete rather than at a time set on the clock. And so you could say have no meeting permitted and change it to 10 o'clock, or you could say once the agenda is done, or you could come up with another solution perhaps. But I came up with 10 just because I felt like that was a reasonable addition, so we wouldn't have to keep adding 10 minutes or 15 minutes. But again, I'm not married to that language of having it be a specific time. I think it is cumbersome and difficult when we have a very full agenda to get through it, and also we end up sacrificing things like council comments, which I think do have a benefit to hear some folks say there are announcements coming up or how they've participated in different committees across regional areas or in different events or things that they've been involved with. And we end up having to cut those in multiple times because we run up against this clock. So I just hope that we can either move it to an unspecified time or a later time. Thank you.
All right, any responses? You each get one crack at it. Councilmember Harris and then Councilmember Nutting.
So, yeah, sounding as that old factory guy, if your meetings consistently run up against the clock, you're not scheduling your meetings properly. And that has been a consistent thing. And so, you know, it should be sort of it should be a little nag that the agenda's setting needs to be changed. And I mean, I will support moving it to 10, but really, in my opinion, the better solution would be every month or so, again, many cities set aside 10 minutes to do a schedule update with the council to just say, here's what we see for the calendar over the next couple of months. And if you look at the calendar, then you don't overschedule. But until we can get to that spot, yeah, we are consistently going overtime, and it just creates undue stress. And so.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Mahoney? Oh, you have Councilmember Nutting.
Thank you, Mayor. This has consistently been a concern of mine. We went from 7 o'clock meetings to 6 o'clock meetings, and in past years, we have not had to extend the meetings as much as we have lately. Stacking the meetings with the amount of stuff that we have to go through, and then the mismanagement of the meetings has allowed them to go overboard. I'm not going to support this. This is ridiculous. We started at 7 o'clock and would go to 10, and we would now go from 6 o'clock to 9. Excuse me. And it's ridiculous that we would not be able to manage our meetings in 3 hours. So I'm not going to support this.
Just a moment here. Thank you. Councilmember Mahoney.
So 3 things on this. I'm not supporting it. First of all, as council members, we could be concise and pointed. Most of the nonsense and rambling extends the meeting beyond what it really should be, and obviously multiple turns beyond the scope of what the protocol already is. It's also respect to staff. Most of them don't come in at noon. They come in the morning, and they're here all day. And I think that's important. And the last one is I trust the wisdom of the council. If it's pertinent enough and we need to extend the time, then we can do so by a majority vote. So I don't support this.
Deputy Mayor Steinmetz.
I'm kind of hearing several different things come out. One is that, we could do a better job agenda setting, and that would address the timeliness problem. 2 is that the comments from the council up here tend to get very long-winded and stretch out the length of the meeting, and we could certainly all do a better job of just making it more concise and making our points. And 3, I think there's an issue with trying to respect staff, and that was part of the reason for moving it up from 7 to 10 in order to do 6 to 9, because, the staff has to be here. And I think we do need to be respectful of that. I don't think we need to extend this past 9 o'clock without a vote of the council. I think it can be tightened up, and the comments that I'm hearing from my colleagues suggest that there are 2 other ways that we can address tightening things up pretty quickly to get us through the agendas and still have time to make staff comments and the such. So it would not be my preference to extend to 10 o'clock on an automatic basis, but rather on a need basis and a vote of the council.
Do you have anything, Councilmember Oxker?
Yes, I will be supporting this because I think there has been instances where, it's basically running out the clock sometimes on some of these issues. I think that some of the changes that we've seen as far as being able to access the information in advance has been helpful in speeding things along. I think, and I think that the mayor has been, making an effort to, have the agendas more concise and working along. But there is also the fact that right now we're still in a transition that we're having to do a heck of a lot of work. So, but the thing is, it's work we got to get done. So at this point, I would favor the motion to extend or the proposal to extend the time period.
All right, so I'll make my comment, and then you'll have your one more time. So, in regard to mismanagement of the agendas, I appreciate the comments from Councilmember Oxiger. In all my time serving on the council, we have never made this many decisions. We have not had a normal study session since we got our new city manager here. Study session used to be, a colleague said one time to me, oh, I'm so thankful, so relieved every time it's a study session. I don't have to bring anything with me. I don't have to read an agenda. I don't have to make any decisions. We have not had a study session where we didn't have to make a decision in months. We are stacked because we have community expectations like never before. We've got a planning commission coming up, strategic plan coming up, a website redesign, a logo redesign, airport committee construction, and a revamp of the Citizens Advisory Committee, and those are just right off the top of my head right now. We are stacked with decisions, and we've got a whole bunch more coming up this summer. We may just have to add more meetings if that's what we want to do. So that's what's coming on us. And then we're right into budget season. We've got huge decisions coming up. So I feel like I've tightened my belt as far as I can, as I possibly can. And I'll just say the reason that I do allow council members to talk more than they should and longer than they should is the severe public criticism that we received on this dais for the opposite. And so I have bent over backwards and, yes, being unreasonable in allowing people to talk too long and too often. And I can tighten that up. But there have just been so many things to try and overcome. So for all those reasons, I am in favor of extending till 10. I do not want to stay here till 10. I love it. If we can go early tonight, I'm going to love that. But so I don't want to go to 10, but I'm going to be in favor of 10. Okay, Councilmember Grace Matsui, your last time.
Thank you. I just want to be clear that I'm not proposing that we extend the council meeting until 10 p.m. That's not my proposal. My proposal is that the meeting will be allowed to continue past 9 o'clock to some other time without a vote. So if we're done at 9:05, if we're done at 8:55, cool. If we're done at 9:20, cool. It doesn't require a vote for us to stop business and go, okay, I'm going to add time. I'm going to add, well, we might need this much time. We might need that much time as the clock is ticking. I'm not suggesting that our agenda should go till 10 o'clock. I'm just saying we shouldn't have to vote to extend it if we hit 9. Now, if we hit 10, I think we have our own problems. But why should we stop business and do a vote to add incremental small times itty-bitty? So the suggestion that I'm giving that we are extending the meeting to 10 o'clock is just not true. Thank you.
All right, so the offering is to extend the ending time without a vote to 10 p.m. All of those who would like that, go ahead and raise your hand for that. It looks like we've got 4 in favor of that, so if we could add that to the proposal amendment. Okay, item number 4, Councilmember Grace Matsui.
I was waiting to hear back. I believe there was going to be staff recommendations about which parts of citywide policies on things like code of conduct, weapons, alcohol and drug-free workplace was going to be discussed again. So I don't have that further information.
So the drug and alcohol-free workplace is already in the council rules. We can add a reference to a weapons policy and an equal opportunity.
Okay. Were there any other citywide policies that you feel may be applicable to council members that are not already in the protocol manual?
Not that I do, no.
So would you like them to add those 2 things?
Yes, I think definitely, if the code of conduct, ethics code are there, but the alcohol, drug-free workplace, equal opportunity, weapons policy could all be a part since they're all applicable to us non-employees as council members. I would support that, and I hope others would too.
All right, comments? Deputy Mayor Steinmetz?
I think this is an excellent idea. I'm in favor of it.
Okay. Any others? All right, all of those who would like to see that added, go ahead and raise your right hand. Looks like there's a lot. Go ahead. We'll put that in the proposal. Excellent. On to, pardon? 3's already done. 3 was done. That's why it's green, right? Yeah. So, I'm going down to number 8, 503B. I don't feel like this is practical in real life. I recommend the following. That the following disclaimer shall be included in all communications initiated by council members. So I just crossed out the in whole or referenced by a link. And instead of me reading this entire thing, if you've all read it, it just streamlines our recommendation, I think, and still covers covers us. Any comments on that? Councilmember Harris.
This is a question, this is not my comment.
Okay.
Are you talking about 9 or 8?
8.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions or comments on that, the revision? Yes, Councilmember Grace Matsui.
I do like this because I think it is shorter and more concise. And it is an important reminder to folks in the audience or the recipient of your communication what the extent of how far you can represent the city. So thank you for bringing it to our attention.
Okay, any other comment? Councilmember Harris and then Deputy Mayor Steinmetz.
Sure. I'm unclear as to, are you saying this would be like a footer in emails? Would this be a requirement in any social media post?
Social media is mostly what I'm thinking.
So you're saying that every time someone comments on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram, they should put this?
In open forums, correct. Wow. Communications initiated by council members in open forums. I do it half the time anyway, but I'll be more diligent about it. It's a good reminder for the community that if that the whole council is not responsible for what, for what I'm saying. Okay, Councilmember Mahoney.
So the question I have is, yeah, if you state an opinion, but in many cases, a recent one was we were going to have this secret executive session, which was absolutely untrue, right? And all we did was respond back, this is not the case, da-da-da-da-da. It was factual and to the point. It wasn't opinion, it was fact. So I see the lines being grayed here with that language.
I see what you're saying. I think what this recommendation, we had a lot longer statement that we were requiring people to put in. This was kind of trying to reduce that, but that's a new observation. Deputy Mayor Steinmetz.
Yeah, I mean, I understand the problem that's being identified here, but I think it's worth erring on the side of the following is my opinion, as it's stated here. I think that's a good thing to put in to any post by somebody, by a member of the council that is posting in a public forum. It should be identified as this is how I see it. This is my opinion. Even we are not having a meeting tonight. I don't think that diminishes the response in any way, but I think if it's erring on the side of caution, it's a good side to err on, and so I'm going to support this.
Councilmember Oxiger.
I just have a question about the inclusion of may not reflect that of the City of Des Moines staff. I can
may not.
see,
It may not.
May not.
It may not represent.
Right, but I guess I can see, the purpose of this is council protocol. And it's what we're saying and doing, but now we're including staff in that. I have a bit of heartburn about that. I can buy it up till the point of, and may not reflect the, that of Des Moines staff.
Okay. Councilmember Harris.
Thank you.
Did you already go on this one?
I
You did? Okay, then no. Councilmember Nutting.
I'm sorry, Councilmember Oxiger, I'd just like you to clarify your point. You're okay with, the following is my opinion alone and may or may not reflect on City of Des Moines staff or my colleagues. So you're okay with it saying that it may not reflect on the staff, but not our colleagues?
I'm sorry, exactly the opposite. This is the council's protocol. This is the council's protocol rules.
I understood, but I should not be included in what you or Councilmember Harris or Councilmember Mahoney or Councilmember Buxton, I'm sorry, Mayor Buxton, should have to say. It should not be included in what my reflections are on these comments. So staff and colleagues is, I don't understand that. I'd like you to expand on that.
I just did.
How you think that some other council member could speak for me or the staff. So please expand.
I think that that's what he is saying, Councilmember, is that he's trying to say that what he's saying does not reflect on either any council member or the staff. So I think that that's a disclaimer.
I guess I misunderstood because the way he proposed it was not that way.
Okay, thank you. Yes.
No, I'm saying that we can set the rule here that
For
it's not
us.
reflecting, other than us. It should have nothing to do with the staff.
Okay. All right. thank
Agreed.
you.
Staff should not be a part of it.
Let me have my response at the end, and then if there's needs to be more after that. So has everybody commented that wants to comment on this? Okay, so, Councilmember, the reason why you would put does not reflect on staff in there, it's a requirement of the council member. We're saying to ourselves that we will treat certain people with respect. That is reflected in what we just voted on, our behavior in the community and our behavior at the dais is respect for the community, that we will act in an honoring way with upstanding character. And this saying, I will treat the staff with respect and not speak for them. This is a statement of respect for staff that says, I'm going to make an opinion statement right here, and it doesn't reflect on anybody else but me. And it protects the staff. It protects the staff from community criticism that says the staff thinks this, and what you're saying is.
I have a point of order. That is not what this reads. This reads logically that there may be 4 voices of the city. The city, me, staff, and my colleagues. It is logically and syntactically incorrect. Thank you.
Okay, so did you have something to add to that?
I just wanted to say that city staff don't chime in on things on social media that are opinions. We only chime in to clarify facts. So from my perspective, if you wanted to just say, the following may or may not reflect that of the city of Des Moines or my colleagues, because really, if we post, it's as the organization, it doesn't matter what we think. So we don't post on our opinions, is what I'm saying.
Okay. My alone and may or may not represent the views of the city of Des Moines or the city council. Okay, So I have, everybody's expressed their opinion, I've expressed my rebuttal, no more comments. All in favor of this, this amendment with the may or may not represent the views of the city of Des Moines or the city council? Raise your right hand if you appreciate this amendment. Looks like we have a lot of consensus on that one. Great. Okay, number 9. The recommendations are in bold. This has to do with the process for receiving communication. Mostly this is about email, concerns or complaints. What these recommendations do is it just keeps the city manager informed as to what kind of information is going in and out, and if staff needs to either correct something or clarify something. That's what these do. Keeps the city manager in the loop about what kind of communication is going in and out. Okay, any comments on that one? Councilmember Harris.
I will oppose this. The former rule in the legacy rules of procedure, it was very straightforward. If a council member receives a complaint from or concern from a resident, it will be CC'd to the city manager, and the council member can request that the information be looped into the council member as the issue is resolved, and that seemed very sensible to me. And if a resident expresses a concern, I think that I would like to be kept in the loop for the duration of that resolution, and the rule was not broken. And this concerns me that it's essentially saying to the administration that they can take that, basically take us out of the loop, and I would not support that. Thank you.
Any other comments on this one? Deputy Mayor Steinmetz.
Yeah, I think it specifically says that any council member may request to be kept in the loop. And so I just think logically that's exactly what it says here. So I think this is a good update on that, because there are 2 instances where an individual council member receives communication, or the council as a whole receives communication, and an individual council member chooses to respond to it. And so it just clarifies that problem, and I think this is well worth doing, and then just request to be kept in the loop.
Point of order, that is not what it
You
says.
got your chance,
It will be up to
Councilmember.
the city
We
manager's
heard what you
discretion.
said, and we've all had this sentence since March. So we heard what you said. We're expediting this. We know how you feel. Councilmember Grace Matsui.
I want to make sure I'm reading the right update here. So we're at 9, item number 9, which is update 5.07.A, B, and C. And so A would have these 2 points added to it, and then we're eliminating B. Is that what we're saying?
Yeah, that might be a typo, I'm not sure, but the point is there's 3 bullets there eliminating B, yes.
Oh, okay. And so the way that I'm reading this is that the council member is not cut out of the loop at all. They're actually just making the loop larger and including the city manager on their communication. So it doesn't mean that they are cut out. It means that they are increasing the touch points at the city. Is that how this reads?
That is my intent.
Okay. In that case, I think it's fine, because I do have a concern that when someone sends an email, it goes to a bunch of us, right? How many folks are on the city council email? Like 12. Okay, so it goes to 12 of us. And if someone reaches out and says, oh, I'm going to do X, or I will refer X, then I've found that I've sent Tim George 6 of the same messages that he already gets. And he's like, you know what? I already get these updates, so you don't actually have to send them to me. And so it really just kind of cuts down on how many times an individual will get a response that's all the same from 12 up to 12 different people. And I think that's actually more efficient, so that there's one response and we're not having a a conversation where someone is promising to do something over here when staff is already doing something about it. I would support those changes. And then are we still talking about eliminating all of B?
Yes.
Okay, great, thank you.
There are no further comments. All in favor of this update? Because I have nothing else to say. Raise your right hand. Looks like you have sufficient direction there. Okay, item number 10. Clarify the procedure for remote attendance. The deal here is if somebody is remote, the foundation is they shouldn't be chairing. But we're not even operating under a committee process right now. But if I were gone and attending remotely, I think it would be prudent for me to hand the baton over to the deputy mayor if I decided to attend a meeting remotely. So that's the intent of this. And it's not, and the other change on this is that you don't ask permission from the mayor, you just notify the mayor. I'm not gonna give you permission. You just let me know if you're gonna be here or not, and, you know, chairs and vice chairs. It used to say you had to get permission and this detailed thing. So that's the 2 points of this. Oh, and unanticipated events do not include vacations and travel, and meetings unconnected with the city council. Because I feel like our agendas are out there for the whole year. If you decide that you want to travel or take a vacation, then that's the decision you've made, so. Okay, any input on that one? Deputy Mayor Steinmetz.
Yeah, I think it's kind of common sense that it's really hard to run a meeting when you're not present, particularly if everybody else is. So I think this is just a nice update, recognizing that there are times when when people need to be remote. So I would support this.
Any other comments? Councilmember Grace Matsui and then Councilmember Oxiger.
I think it's fine to keep it because even though we don't have committees meeting at this time, that might change in the future, and so I don't think it's a good idea to take it out in the case of committee chairs, but I do think it's just far easier to have a person who is in person who can see as much as what's going on and read as much body language as they can to be a presiding officer rather than try and do that while remote. So I appreciate the suggestion.
Councilmember Oxiger.
I guess, you know, we've got various instances where we allow, what is the restriction on the use of this? I mean, could 3 of us dial in remotely?
Yes, you can be on Zoom. 3 people could be on Zoom and attend a meeting, absolutely.
And then what is the number of occurrences?
We have not put that into our protocol manual, but I was trying to keep mine to a limit of things, so we can see how this works. If it becomes a problem, then I think that would be a subject for the next protocol update.
Okay, because I remember I had an instance where there was a case where I was diagnosed with COVID and was told that, okay, you can participate the first time, you'll be treated, you know, as a normal meeting, and subsequent times you can dial in and participate, but you're not going to get paid.
Well, that is not addressed this way. We have not updated our protocol manual to totally address all of the contingencies that can happen for using Zoom. Hence, right now, Councilmember Nutting has been attending a lot on remotely. So that is something we can address in the future. Nobody submitted anything about that. So,
Mayor, I think I can answer that question.
okay.
So pre-COVID, we did have a remote attendance rule that was in the old council rules prior to the protocol manual. And that rule said you could attend 1 meeting remotely per year. So that's what you're referencing. Obviously, when COVID happened, the entire council met for 2 years remotely. And so then when this was adopted, this latest protocol manual, that requirement about the 1 meeting per year was removed.
And while this was being developed, we were still semi-remote, I think, so we didn't even envision this totally happening at that time, so. Keep it in your back pocket. So, all right, any other comments on this one? Councilmember Nutting.
I love you guys for calling me Jeremy all the time. I just to comment on Councilmember Oxenger's comment is, I mean, this position doesn't pay us a living wage. And yes, I have been meeting remotely constantly because I have to pay my bills. And it has not been updated in the council procedures. And if you guys want to push me out of my position, then the next time that brings it up, then we'll decide that later. So I guess that's all my comments.
All right, so for this one, go ahead, Councilmember Harris.
As a practical matter, Zoom did not work as a combo platter until very recently. And I am interested in knowing if more than one council member wanted to attend remotely, would it actually work?
Well, let's save that for another conversation in that time. So can you keep that in your back pocket, maybe put it under new business?
I want to just, because basically nobody wants to.
No, Councilmember Harris, we're trying to get through these specific decisions. That's a different question. Can you bring it back at a new business at our next meeting? She said it would work. Okay, good. Okay. All right, thank you. All in favor of this amendment? Raise your right hand. Good. Looks like we've got direction. Okay, next up, Councilmember Mahoney, number 11.
Thank you, Mayor. On 402, and this occurred when I was mayor, because I discovered there was no restraints for any expenses for council members. So they were just auto-approved. So this is why I came up with the language that any expenses, and particularly with our budget situation now, I think we need to be more prudent with our money, especially we can lead by example. So this was one where I realized we needed a restriction. So any expenses exceeding $1,000 for any council member in a calendar year must be approved by the council majority prior to any additional expenses incurred. Failure to follow this stipulation will require council members to be responsible for all additional expenses. The city manager has the authority to pause any requests outside the normal expenses and bring before the council for approval. And what it does is add a stipulation that there's controls on that. When I was mayor, our council budget had exceeded what was budgeted, and when I realized that, well, you know, when I asked the question of why were we looking at compared to what the budget was, the answer was, well, council member requested it. And I just think in this particular thing, we need to show our fiscal responsibility, and I think $1,000 is reasonable. There's a lot to get done. Obviously, if somebody's traveling or something like that, that warrants doing that. But my point is that it needs some kind of fence lines for the majority of the council to make a decision of whether that's authorized or not.
Any comments on that? Councilmember Harris.
This is a question. What types of expenses went beyond that $1,000?
Education was one, and I believe there was some travel. Tara, our city clerk, when we spoke about it, it was several years ago, so I don't know if you remember the conversation, but it was that. It was primarily education that was, and not that I'm against education, but in this new vein and responsibility, I think it's important that we have limitations. Sure, as a council, we go, great, you're gonna get education, we approve it, but if we don't demonstrate fiscal responsibility, then why should we ask anybody else to?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Steinmetz, and then Councilmember Nutting after that, and then Councilmember Harris.
Yeah, I'm seeing this as everybody up here gets $1,000 of expenses every year that But anything over that is what needs to be approved.
Exactly.
And that's not saying you won't get it, but you have to make the case for it. And I think this is a very reasonable way to sort of, this is your budget you're working with. If you need to exceed your budget, ask your colleagues. And then understanding that if it's not approved and you've already spent it, you're responsible for it. And that if there is a pause on the, until it can get to the council, any reimbursement would be paused. I think those are very reasonable things to do, particularly in light of, we're talking about $7,000 in total, which is a fair amount, for our budget. So I'm going to support this. I think it's quite reasonable.
Councilmember Nutting and then Councilmember Harris.
Yeah, I just echo what Councilmember Mahoney and Deputy Mayor Steinmetz said. I mean, just if there's anything over $1,000, you got to come back to the council to get it approved. Not just asking staff for it.
Councilmember Harris, and then Councilmember Grace Matsui.
Education is the one thing that should not even be on the table for this. In the grand scheme of things, it just seems petty. We should encourage, I would, if it were possible for candidates for office to take these classes, I would encourage the city to pay for it. Every one of us knows that there's a lot of on-the-job training, and and it is such a trivial amount in the grand scheme of things that, yeah, just to even have to think about whether or not you can take a class, yeah, no.
Councilmember Grace Matsui.
Thank you. No, I do think it's good to have a general guideline. I do think that in this day and age, $1,000 is a little low. I would wonder if we could go to something like $1,200, given that a hotel room is $200 a night, and then the conference itself might be anywhere from $300 to $400, and pretty soon you'll have to ask to go to one. Like maybe one could be your go without asking for additional funds. And I also wanted to clarify real quickly, I don't think we actually have a set aside money for travel and education for council. So there's not actually a $7,000 budget for this. Is that correct?
don't.
Yeah.
So are you recommending $1,200?
I could go.
See, that's yours, though.
Yeah, I can go either way, but just a thought, because I just know how much it costs to participate in
I
conferences.
arbitrarily, to keep it clean, did 1,000. I don't care, 1,200. The fact is we need physical, fences on what we spend. Nobody's gonna shun somebody's.
Let's wait for, I'm sorry. Let's
Okay.
wait for yeah, I'm gonna give you your 3 minutes at the end. So, anybody else? Comments, questions on that one?
I would like to amend this to exclude education from this limit. The classes, not hotels or any of that other stuff, but the actual classes should not be included in this.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? Okay, the first one then, anybody in favor of eliminating education from this recommendation, please raise your right hand.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Point of clarification.
Yes, yes.
Not a point of order
Yeah.
at all. I don't think this covers classes. It covers conferences, workshops, educational opportunities. Oh, it does cover tuition. Okay. So, would your amendment mean to take out
Tuition.
just tuition? Okay.
Okay, so anybody in favor of eliminating tuition from this paragraph, raise your right hand. 2 of you. All right, so that's struck. So now, everybody in favor of this amendment as presented, with 1,200? 1,200? All right. Everybody in favor of this amendment with 1,200, raise your right hand. Looks like you have, good. Councilmember, is sufficient to move this one forward. Okay, next.
So this changed a little bit because we just agreed on eliminating one of the lines. I think it was B. But I added and I wrote as, and I should have added as individual council or as a whole, or actually as whether as council as a whole or individual must allow time for staff to respond. To ensure transparency, any council member responding must use city email for all responses. No personal emails can be used as a substitute. Any email using personal email with any official city designation or associated with a campaign address, i.e. identity as a council member, possibly giving the inference of a response in any official capacity is not permitted. Any such email, should they occur, must be forwarded to the city clerk so full transparency is established. And based on what I know, if somebody does this, I believe it's a violation of RCW if they respond to do city business on their personal email and use their position and city official designation. In addition, it gets into PDC complications when they're using campaign websites and things like that and campaign emails. So we need the language because, quite frankly, it's been abused.
So would you like a reference to the RCW in this?
Yeah, I think if it's agreement, I think it could be done. I believe in the manual somewhere or somewhere along the lines, it's in the body of the messaging, but I can't recall. I don't have it handy. But it's about transparency in public records and so forth.
Okay.
And I would point to the city attorney for those types of things.
Okay, when they're creating this amendment to include an RCW.
And if the language is cleaned up to make it a little bit more sense, but the point is, we need to be transparent, we need to use the appropriate vehicles to message,
Okay.
and all that has to be available.
All right, any comments on that? Councilmember Harris.
I'm fine with the first two sentences, strike the third sentence.
Which is which one?
Any email using personal email with official designation or associated with a campaign, that's,
Big surprise.
yeah, that's a violation of PDC and believe state law for transparency.
Well, I don't know what you mean by official city designation.
So if you put your name and sign your council member position,
Yeah,
that people get the inference that you're a city council member on a private email when you're addressing city business, that is considered city business, not private. In addition, if it had an email address that it corresponds with a campaign, it's even further a violation.
So just to clarify one thing.
Please.
You can send a city email from your personal email. It's just that it's a public record. So if you're sending city emails from your personal email, if we get a public records request, you have to provide those. So it's not illegal. I just want to clarify that piece.
Thanks.
If you use your personal email to do work, to do city business, it's allowed. It's just now your personal email is public record.
how do you define city business? This is just, yeah, how do you define city business?
There's case law on it. I could
Please.
look that up and send it to you.
I can understand if somebody sends an email to an official, DesMoinesWA.gov, and you're responding to a constituent, but are you saying that simply identifying yourself as a member of the city council automatically makes it city business?
I think it depends on what you're writing about.
That's what I'm trying to get at, is it just seems like you could say you're a member of the city council and say, hey, let's go water skiing next Saturday. I'm not being flip. I'm trying to get a sense of what this means, because it just seems super vague.
Yeah, so there's a lot of, and I can send you some information, but it's really kind of, public records 101 stuff that MRC has that we can get you on that, so.
Yeah.
Deputy Mayor Steinmetz.
Yeah, I mean, there's just an abundant amount of material out there that tells you got to keep that line very clear if you don't want your public email to become subject to a public disclosure request. So, you know, the information's out there to be had if you need more, but it's a very bad practice to try to blend the two. I think this is a very reasonable way to include directly in our protocol manual, you know, with some clarity that private needs to stay private, public needs to stay public. Please don't interrupt me, sir. I don't understand why you think you need to respond after you've had a chance. Private needs to stay private, public needs to stay public, and the two should not meet. You know, I now carry around 3 phones just to make sure that they all stay separate. You know, because I have my phone here, I have my phone for the public agency that I work for, and I have my private phone. And that's the way you have to do it sometimes, but that makes a very clear delineation on what you're doing. So you know, I think it's important to put this in, and I strongly support this. I think it's a very reasonable approach.
Point of order, I made an amendment, and that is why I was responding, sir. If this sentence remains, it should refer to the appropriate RCW.
Okay. Councilmember Nutting.
Thank you, Mayor. We are all required to take training via the internet after being elected, and even after being elected several times and after election season, that states basically this. So my only comment is that it should coincide with what is stated per the state, which any emails pertaining to our elected positions be disclosed. So I don't know what the question is here, because they should be being disclosed and kept record of. So those are my comments.
Any other comment before? So just for clarity, the sentence stays in with the RCW will be included when this comes forward, correct? Okay. So the RCW will be included when this comes forward. I think it's a good idea. I have no other comments. Do you have anything in closing, Councilmember Mahoney? All in favor of this amendment, raise your right hand. It looks like you have plenty to move that forward. Thank you so much. Next, number 13.
All right, so moving to 706, the third paragraph, I wanted to expand the language here. It says, no council member shall request or direct the city manager, department directors, staff, or outside entities to initiate any action or prepare any work. The reason why I'm stating this is because that is not the scope of our authority, is to order work and so forth, or tell other people what to do. As a council as a whole, we would direct the city manager and staff in a majority vote, but it needs to be stated and cleared up, in my opinion, because in addition to that, part of what I'm talking about here is we need to include staff, and it just had department directors, but also outside entities. So an example would be, nobody's going to call WashDOT and order something, a work order, and then our staff find out about it later. That's not our authority. We don't have any business doing it, but it needs to be stated because it has been violated.
Thank you. Comments, Councilmember Oxiger and then Councilmember Nutting.
I guess I have a problem here again with shall request or direct the city manager. We're told that everything we're supposed to do is supposed to go through the city manager. So
No, it's adding to that sentence. Go ahead.
It's no council member, single council member. We can't act on our own authority. It has to be majority based for direction.
He's adding that to a sentence. Did you see the sentence that he's adding it to? No council member shall.
Right.
Yeah, that's what he's saying.
So an individual council member can't do those directions.
I think in the case of the city manager can decide whether or not that's a, you know, if that's, you know, a legitimate request for information. If you're talking, are you making a distinction between information and action?
I'm talking initiate any action or prepare any report. Why, the thing is that if you want, a study on floatables in the Redondo area, but all of us think it's nonsense, why should she be directed to make a report for that when it's not the will of the majority council?
There's a difference between direct and request.
Well, request is different, but the thing is she doesn't necessarily have to do it. She could do it as a.
Exactly.
But this is shall request or direct, and I think that was the language we had. I just expanded it to add the additional people.
Councilmember Grace Matsui and then Councilmember Harris.
The way I'm reading this is you are just expanding the number of people that are already covered under no one single council member shall direct or request to initiate an action report or initiate a study or a project. I don't think that this covers a request for information.
Yeah,
that is something that's totally different that we are allowed to request at any time. So this is about requesting or directing an action or a report or initiating a project or a study, and it just broadens the number of people, a category of folks from city manager, department directors, to city manager, department directors, staff, or outside. I don't know if entity is right, but yeah, I maybe outside jurisdiction or organization. Entity always gives me the impression that it's a living people, like a raccoon, not like WashDOT, because entity means like a living thing. So I'm sorry, that's kind of nerdy, but yeah, but outside jurisdiction, outside organization.
Yeah, and I struggled with the word too. I was trying to be all encompassing,
Right.
whether it was a government official, it might be businesses.
Yeah.
Could be charitable organizations.
That's true.
Those kind of
Yeah.
things. So I didn't have, that was the closest thing I could get to it, all encompassing, and maybe there's better language.
Yeah, I get where your intent was. So it doesn't change any of that sentence that's already there under 7.06, except for broadening the people.
Okay. Statement. So, Councilmember Harris and then Deputy Mayor Steinmetz.
Well, first of all, information requests already go through the city manager, and it is a common thing today. We all were asked if we had any questions, and so from the HR director or the assistant city manager. So to me, this is superfluous. And regarding outside entities, I have absolutely no authority to direct any outside agency to do anything. However, I will never give up my First Amendment right to request information from state agencies, WashDOT, or I do not surrender that as a member of the City Council. So there, you can't constrain that. If any member of the council wants to request information from MRSC, WashDOT, you said, they are also adults who have the ability to say, that is not appropriate, but they can't because if it's a public records request, that's also, yeah, it's just, you can't control outside agencies, sorry.
Okay, so just before you make your statement, Councilmember, did everybody get a chance to make their one input? You haven't yet?
No, I'm
to
not.
this one. Okay, Deputy Mayor Steinmetz, and then you.
Yeah, and I just want to clarify, the outside entity would cover the situation. We had Jenny, who was staffing the CAC for a long time. and it was an individualized contract. And therefore, I think entity needs, when I hear entity, I think, sort of in the void somewhere. But I think there's a reason to go that broadly with it, and I think it is good. Secondly, this does not take away anybody's constitutional rights. And so I don't think that's not really an issue here. So, thank you.
All right. I think everybody has said, so go ahead for your closing remarks.
No, obviously, Councilmember Harris comments, as a person, an individual, not using my title, I can make any records request I want, or ask a question or authority. But if any type of, and this is about the same thing with, public comments and those kind of things and using private email, is keeping the lines clear. The appearance that you're asking for directive or preparing reports, seeking information as an individual is fine, but as a council member, I think you have a different set of rules you have to go by. That's all I'm gonna say. And it has to be transparent. If we're gonna preach it, we need to practice it.
Okay, so we've gone through the process here, so I'm just gonna ask for a raise of hands. If you agree with this amendment, raise your right hand. Okay, looks like we have sufficient directive. Last one for you, Councilmember Mahoney.
I got one more. All right. End of the first paragraph on 708, right? Adding the language, council member interactions with staff, including the city manager, shall be in a respectful and professional manner at all times.
Any input on that one?
Well, can I just
Okay.
comment on it first?
Yes.
My opinion is we shouldn't have to say this. We should always be of the utmost in our professionalism, but it needs to be stated.
Okay. Any comments on this one? All right, all in favor of adding that amendment? Sufficient support for that, so thank you very much. Councilmember Harris, your first 5, so pick 5.
Thank you. I am just going down the list.
Okay.
Where it says 2.08, standing committees of the council are open public meetings and so forth. And this paragraph refers to recordings. I would like to have all committee meetings noticed to the public and video recorded and available for viewing. And so that would include the newly expanded CAC and, especially considering we have basically downsized all that stuff that should not be onerous. That's it.
Okay, go ahead, let's see, comments, so you go first, Councilmember Mahoney.
Actually, I have a question, and it probably directed to Councilmember Grace Matsui or Councilmember Oxeter, because you have run the Human Services and the Seniors Committees, particularly the Human Services, where you're in a situation where you're reviewing applications. A lot of the members have done research and so forth. And the discussion is important, but it could actually affect a charity by somebody's statement or so forth. I'm saying, so somebody says, this charity, my opinion is this and that. Now there's a recording. The design of it was for a free discussion without, limitations or some of those kind of things where it was recorded, because you haven't necessarily set yourself up to which ones you're gonna allocate and why. But I could see it being problematic. Does that make sense? I just want to ask you what your take on that, because of his proposal. I think that might be problematic. That's why those have been kind of more closed-door committees.
Okay, so really quickly, before you answer that question, the city manager does have.
Well, I just wanted clarity, because what the council organized a few weeks ago was a centralized citizen advisory board with subcommittees that were not supported by staff. And they are supposed to then report out to the CAB meeting, which is recorded, et cetera. And the airport committee and the planning commission, those will all be recorded. So I need some clarification on these subcommittees, which I think is also what Councilmember Mahoney is referencing.
So, Councilmember Harris, could you clarify your request? considering the new CAB, Citizens Advisory Board and subcommittees.
Yeah, I don't, I should have been more thorough, and I apologize. I don't have a problem with the subcommittees if they are not here with the appropriate facilities. However, I do believe the Lodging Tax Committee, the Police Advisory Committee, those should all be recorded. Every city, every council committee that we have talked about should be recorded and available to the public viewing. Thank you.
Councilmember Grace Matsui, and then Deputy Mayor Steinmetz.
Sorry, I want to make sure that I defer part of Councilmember Mahoney's question for clarification to Councilmember Oxiger, because I actually have never sat on the Human Services Committee, so that would be best for him to answer. I do want to clarify that the Police Advisory Committee is not a standing committee of the council, and so it wouldn't apply.
No, again, I meant.
I'm sorry, I'm
taking
still.
that out of way, I'm striking that word and substituting all committees that we have discussed here. So police, lodging tax, citizens advisory committee, airport committee. If it's a committee, it should, if it has the word committee, it should be recorded and available for public viewing. Thank you.
Any clarification?
Well, I want to make sure that Councilmember Grace Matsui is done with her question clarification.
Thank you, I appreciate that. I think my question would be to what resources are needed in order for staff and the technology to be available to do all of that. With the Senior Advisory Committee, we often meet off campus. We had a recent meeting at the food bank, and we learned about all the programs that were there. We talked to representatives of Neighborhood House who were there tabling. We toured the Essentials Closet, which you can donate new and lightly used household goods to on Wednesdays. And it would be impractical for us to video record that while we're walking and talking. And I know that there are other committees that meet outside of this committee room. So it kind of goes to a resourcing question for me on whether or not we are just in the position to move all of those committees to this and then staff each and every one of them.
Deputy Mayor Steinmetz.
Yeah, I just have a point of clarification to either the city manager or the city attorney. Aren't the committees that we're talking about, including the Citizens Advisory Board, I forget the whole list, but aren't those subject to an ordinance that we've created those as an ordinance and therefore are not subcommittees of or committees of the council and don't belong in the protocol manual at all? Rules regarding that needs to be in the ordinance that creates the committee, I believe. But I'm asking for clarification on that.
They are created by ordinance. I mean, I think we could do it either way. We could have it in here, we could have it in an ordinance. We don't, because we don't really, I don't think we talk a lot about video recording anything in our ordinance. I think it's in the protocol manual. But legally, I think you could put it either place.
Okay. Councilmember Nutting, did you have a question or comment on this? Okay. Anyone else? My recommendation would be to amend that to say staffed and appointed committees of the council. So, because the Police Advisory is not an appointed committee of the council, and the subcommittees of the CAB are not staffed. So if they're staffed and appointed, I think we've already made that decision that we're recording all of those. But we can put it in writing. And I would be supportive of that. Are you satisfied putting that forward as your amendment?
Just question for the city attorney, would that include the Lodging Tax Advisory Committee?
Yes.
Sure thing.
Okay, so this amendment would be staffed and appointed committees of the council. All right. If no, do you have a closing statement?
I would just say that if we want more public engagement, people have to see how things work. There will always be a sentiment that people will speak more candidly when they sense they're not being recorded and all that other stuff. And I would just say it's better, it's always better to have the discussion out in public and have, and so that people see how things work. And if for no other reason than to bring more people into the stream. Because right now, these things are, you know, they're just this black box that, and that's why not enough people get involved. I really believe that. So thank you for your support.
Okay, all in favor of this, this amendment, raise your right hand. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's enough to bring that forward. Okay, number 2, the next one, 2.08.
Yes, so currently council members, it says council members may be appointed or removed by the mayor. What?
I need to reread that. Where is that? 208.
Can we agree that that be stricken?
Yeah, I need to find it as well. Is it, are you talking about council members that staff committees? Because they're appointed by the mayor, but right now we're operating without that model, but if we reinstate that model, council members are appointed by the mayor. So you're, Councilmember Mahoney.
When the mayor's appointed, I think it's their prerogative to appoint. Obviously, committees, any committee appointments are approved by the council, but I think it isn't broken and it doesn't need to be fixed.
No, but the line says council members may be appointed or removed by the mayor. Is that not?
From committee appointments, is that? Yes. So if you want to add that, then all of a sudden it makes more sense. I can't remove you as a council member.
Right, that's why I'm saying just.
So what you're saying is,
Saying the language is the sentence.
so what you would like to have it amended to council members may be appointed or removed from committees by the mayor?
Yeah.
Okay. Input on that one? Councilmember Grace Matsui.
Thank you. We aren't operating under this model at this time, but we might revert back to it. And I think that this is all about procedures governing all committees. That is the sub-point that it's under. So this doesn't have to do with anything else except for committees. So I don't know that the clarity needs to be there, but I don't think it hurts either. But there's no other, since this is already under procedures for governing committees.
I am proposing to basically, once you're appointed, you're there until the next 2-year cycle.
I see what you're saying. Yeah. Okay. Any comments on that? All right. All in favor of this amendment, raise your hand. 1, 2. Okay. It does not move more forward. Next one, number 17, 2.08.
However, at the discretion of the mayor, council members may be appointed as a liaison to one or more council-established citizen advisory bodies. And I propose to remove that. I propose no more liaison.
Excuse me, Mayor, is his microphone on? because I can't.
I apologize, Councilmember.
Okay.
Thank you.
He's proposing to remove the liaison assignment.
Yeah. And I believe we discussed that, you know, I don't know where it landed, but, yeah, I don't think we should have liaisons to various committees anymore.
And Mayor, I think I'm getting Deputy Mayor's point here about these committees, is that I think what he's talking about is like the Citizens Advisory Committee and Human Services and all that, and that is in Title IV. So when we have a note here, like on 209, it talks about citizens advisory bodies is found in DMMC Title IV.
So it's in code.
It's in code. So to the degree you're trying to change the code, I mean, now we're going to have inconsistencies. So that stuff should be addressed when we're addressing the code, which we are going to do as we work through the Citizens Advisory Board and consolidate those, and then we can look at the liaison piece.
Okay, so are you satisfied with looking at this again when we revise our code in accordance with our committees? Councilmember?
Sure thing.
That's going to be part of the discussion. Okay, so I'll give you an extra one. So, number 18, 4.03.
Yeah, yeah, it's already a state requirement. Let's skip that since, you know, we're, the first paragraph, 5.01, it says, perhaps the most fundamental role of a council member is communication. I would strike that. That is not the fundamental role of a council member, but, yeah. According to state law, and I don't want to reword it, I just want to remove it because according to the state law, as my predecessor said, our two state mandated functions are passing a budget and hiring and firing the city manager. So those are our fundamental functions. So I would just remove that first paragraph.
Okay, comments on this one? Councilmember Mahoney.
Well, this was specific to communication in the Chapter 5, and it speaks to communication, and I think it's just a reminder that we need to be adept and understand our communication and what we need to do to communicate. We all have opportunity to talk to constituents in our community, whether in groups or individual. And I think it's fine because the purpose is to restate the importance of correctly communicating accurately and educating and informing. We're out there with the public, and I think this just gives us that policy of why it's important and what we should do. So I disagree.
Okay. Anybody else? Councilmember Grace Matsui.
I think it would be tough to strike that first sentence because it would make the next sentence nonsensical. So the next sentence would start, this is essential to engage. So I think it would, if you want to change that first sentence, you would have to replace it with something else or change the second sentence as well.
How about A fundamental role of a council member is? Would you be happy with that? Okay. So it
An
sounds
important, no, an important
Okay.
role.
An important role. An important role. Okay, I saw your hand, Deputy Mayor.
You were making the same suggestion that I.
Excellent, great minds and all the rest. Okay, how about you, Councilmember Nutting? Any comments? Checking in with you? Okay, any other comments on this one? All in favor, raise your right hand. Good, good, moves forward. I'm going to give you, I think, one more here, Councilmember, is that correct?
Thank you. Yeah, I'm sure this will go over big, but the entire paragraph 5.04 to promote a favorable image of the city, and I'm going to be a bit rhetorical, but I call this the Scheckler rule. For the public, it adds this notion of the mayor being essentially a marketing representative of the city, and I believe that is not the role of the mayor. It is the city manager's role to represent the city, to be the face of the city with in all kinds of commercial, economic endeavors and so forth. With all due respect, you do a lovely job, but the role of the mayor should be strictly ceremonial, and it was a mistake to add that back in the day. Yeah.
Okay, any comments on that one? Councilmember Mahoney.
I disagree with that because the city manager runs the city, but the truth is even though we are on equal basis, the mayor's the face of the city. And it's always been that way. But this doesn't preclude that. It's the mayor or another council member designated by the council. The language there is to promote a favorable image. What we want to prevent is council members that aren't reflecting the will of the council and giving their own opinion in public. That's problematic and misinformation. But I don't see any reason to change it. It's a role, it's a perception that I found when I was mayor, that even though I used to say I'm just one of 7 and so forth, people, it's inbred in them, in that they think of the mayor role as a leadership there. And that's why I said, when I discovered my epiphany was, well, the city manager runs the city, the mayor will always be the face of it, or the designated representative from council, we all feel comfortable speaking on our behalf. So I do not see this, and I wouldn't change it.
Any other comments on that? Deputy Mayor Steinmetz.
Yeah, I kind of think that this is if it's not broke, you don't need to fix it, and it's not broken. I think there is an assumption that the mayor is the face of the city and should present a positive, promote a favorable image of the city. And that's essentially what that opening paragraph is stating. So I don't know, I see no compelling reason to change this, and I don't think it's an inaccurate statement. So I'm not in favor of this.
Okay. Councilmember Oxiger.
I have to disagree. I think the mayor is the face of the council. We hire the city manager and are not permitted to interfere. And so, again, yeah, we elect the mayor to conduct the meetings and conduct the business of the council. But when we hire the city manager, she's the face of the city. She's the face of the city.
Okay. Anyone else? So my response to this is pursue a favorable image or relationships that will benefit. Designated by the county, it could be the mayor or somebody designated by the council, and a key word there is may take the lead. But a lot of these are, people reach out, they say a lot of times, staff to staff, elected to elected, so it's very difficult to ask the city manager to interact with electeds sometimes. And it works a lot better. Electeds reach out to me. I'm on a lot of elected boards, elected committees, so then the electeds talk with each other. So they reach out to me as the mayor, and then but I can't make decisions. I've got to work, with the operations, right? So I have to work together. But I think it would be, you just want to totally eliminate 504. To strike the whole first paragraph. I think it said.
Favorable relationships has always given me great pause, because the public, they hear Mayor Ralph and they hear Mayor Buxton and they think one and the same.
That's true.
And I've been here a long time, and I would watch Mayor Scheckler go out and talk to developers, and I'm like, I'll go on. And the public sees, you hear the word mayor, and people think, oh, you're the executive. And whether you intend it or not, that word carries a lot of weight. And so you can do ribbon cuttings and stuff, and I'm not trying to, you know, basically minimize that. It is a wonderful thing, and presiding over meetings is no day at the beach. But we should do everything possible, in my opinion, to educate the public who is the executive, who is the face of the city in terms of relationships with commercial interests and other agencies, and that is a small step in the direction. So favorable image, actually fine, but I just, simplicity, wanted to take it out. But it's actually the relationships piece that has always given me pause. So if it is easier for people, that clause is really the one that's always been problematic for me.
Okay.
Thank you.
So I'm so tempted to respond, but I'm going to obey my own rules. So that's it. If there's no other comments, if you want to strike that first paragraph, raise your right hand. 2. Okay, it does not move forward. All right, so I think that does it for the comments that we did allow. Again, I want to reiterate that we did, a lot of us have probably had twice as many items to bring forward, but we wanted to expedite this process and move forward, so the rest of these items can either be brought forward at a new business, time for doing new business if it's important enough, or at the next protocol review. So thank you so much for those of you that submitted amendments and requests, greatly appreciated. So next, next up, we have an executive session. And let's see, just on time. The council will now dismiss to executive session in accordance with RCW 42.30.1101G to discuss the performance of a public employee. The session is expected to last for 20 minutes and dismiss at 8:56. Is that right? Did I do my math right? So, where am I in my sentence? No council action will be taken after this, is expected to be taken after the session.
Next meeting date?
No, we're not closing yet, because it's only expected to last. We'll reconvene and close. Yes, Jeremy?
Mayor, I would suggest, because I've been able to toggle in and out, that we've been in session for 2+ hours, that my colleagues have a chance to use the restroom prior to that, so give an extra 5 minutes.
That's fine with me. Let's go down and, all right.
Colleagues?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.